This is why you're my GOAT, Jim. This is why you're my GOAT. Your name game is undefeated. It will continue to always be undefeated. You got them, babe. You just roasting these guys. So there's a lot of people out there saying that I don't give Jim Cornette a fair shake when he comes to talking about professional wrestling. Now, I understand a lot of people like Jim Cornette. He is a voice of a certain subsection of the population in the professional wrestling space. So let's listen to him review an entire episode of AEW.
All right, well, let's hostify a little bit. There are some topics, and as always, we have questions and things we want to get to. But with time being tight, let's start with AEW Dynamite, because then we know how much time we have left. And this is another one of those episodes of Dynamite where as I'm watching it, I laugh. I, cover my eyes at times, but I laugh a lot. And I just wonder, what is Jim going to say about this? Because so much of it's undefendable.
Undefendable seems strong.
Thunderbolt Patterson, if I only had time. I mean, I don't, people say, well, you kind of gloss over the WWE a lot of times, but you go into detail on AEW. That's because, for one thing, you have to explain the inexplicable in the way that they try to explain it, and that takes a little time. And then secondly, you have to identify what's wrong with it, and that takes a lot more time. And then also, in some cases, I just don't know what to fucking say. Should we start at the beginning?
Much like their commentators. You have no idea what to say. Oh my God,
Sockface continues to... I think did he try to call Private Potty at one point?
There were several points again where he lost control of...
I love the fact that Jim is like, he got somebody's name wrong. Jim, that's your gimmick. That's your whole thing, buddy. That's like your main joke. What are you talking about? I understand. Don't let people step on your stuff.
His mouth and he couldn't speak coherently.
You know what Mama Cornette would say?
I have no idea.
His tongue got lopped over his eye teeth and he couldn't see what he was saying.
There's an expression you don't hear too often nowadays.
You don't hear it as much as you used to. But anyway, so they started out with the spooky cold open of the Moxley bunch. We got to come up with a name for that group because they're not the Blackpool gangbangers anymore, or whatever the fuck are they?
Apparently, he has filed for a trademark because Tony, being a nice guy and doing something that WWE would never do is letting the wrestlers trademark their own things and then bring them in. Moxley has trademarked Death Riders.
Oh, well, that's it.
To which,
it's also been on a shirt. Like, they had jackets made. They were in pre-tapes. It said Death Riders, like, on jackets, guys. I thought we watched the show.
Jaya responded, the full name is Ratings Death Riders.
What?
Thanks, Richie.
That makes sense. Maybe he's a big Ghost Rider fan. Or, Riders on the Storm or Ghost Riders in the Sky, Death Rider. It sounds so cool.
Is Death Jitsu the official fighting form of Death Riders?
Yes, and they will sponsor the pickup truck. You're going to see Death Jitsu wrapped around the side of the pickup truck. Oh, well.
Your brakes and shocks have death. I'll tell you where to send it. When's he going to start doing commercials?
Commercials for death? What is he going to... Hey, he has a hard enough time selling wrestling tickets. He might as well sell people on popularity and death.
Just get to it.
Folks, death is for you. That's why we ride all over the country telling you about it. But they had the
Jim's selling me on that concept right now.
With this yapping. They went to the arena, and they're in Cleveland, Ohio. And my God, the poor people of Cleveland have put up with enough abuse already. But here came to the ring with no music, not even his music, not even anything to make this motherfucker exciting.
Well, he cut off the Claudio video when Claudio was ranting. Apparently the most fearless guy there is the fucking cameraman. He's following these guys everywhere with no problem. Like, there was a video, Claudio was yelling at the camera, and all of a sudden you hear, "Cut that off, it's enough!" And you're like, who the hell's that? We never hear that voice.
Well, yeah, and then there's a reason why we're about to find out. But yeah, here comes the company mascot, little puppy pockets, Orange Cassidy, to the ring with no music, no charisma, no talent. He's had all he can stands, and he can't stands no more. And he gets in the ring and starts cutting a live promo. And he said
I'm sorry, guys. I understand like a lot of people like Jim and find him entertaining, but this dude has zero juice. I mean, he's absolutely sauceless. He's boring as hell, guys. What do we like? How is this guy the voice of like a large portion of the population in professional wrestling? This guy, like, if it's the whole he craps on AEW and I don't like AEW thing, fine. Like, okay, he's an echo chamber talking head. That's cool. But this guy has no new thoughts at all.
he doesn't do this normally, talking about speaking. I wish he wouldn't do it at all. He had a good streak going there.
Nah, you probably complained.
But after last week when he watched his best friend's neck, that's Muffin Top Taylor, mercifully missed that. My best friend's neck got crushed by a steel chair. And I was surrounded by the future of AEW, all the young wrestling stars, and they have no idea of the danger that they're in. So now this fucking moron that nobody can take seriously to begin.
So what do you want him to do, Jim? They're trying to tell a story. His best friend was injured at the hands of these heels, and he's going to go get retribution. That is like the antithesis of a lot of wrestling storylines, and the fact that like you're being obtuse, saying like, "Oh, what's this about? I don't get it." Like, it's showing clear favoritism, and of course you can have like your favorites, right? Jim, you're a talking head, but like, let's not act like you're making the wrestling business better. You're clearly asking questions about things that you know about. Like, if someone was to question your booking this same way, you would just say, "What do you mean? It's just a best friend gets attacked and he's trying to stick up for him." It's a real simple concept, Jim.
With and looks like he couldn't whip cream with an outboard motor, is standing there saying that I'm the only one that realizes how dangerous. He's got to come out and put Moxley over as being a badass. I'm the only one who realizes how dangerous Moxley is to the ratings. But these other guys,
Jim,
they got no idea of the danger they're in. So I know what I need to do. If we don't stop Moxley, there will be no future of AEW. And then he actually said, without AEW, I don't exist. I owe everything to... Yes, because nobody else would have ever put you on fucking television. You goddamn sad-looking son of a bitch. He's just said he's a sorry-looking. You know, I actually got sued for saying that one time.
What?
Because I got in the ring in Baton Rouge, Louisiana to introduce the Midnight Express in 1984.
I got sued for that. Yeah, Jim, because when you were a kid, it was illegal to say swear words. That's how ancient you are, you dinosaur.
And I looked at the people. I said, you got to be the sorriest looking bunch of people I've ever seen in my life. And then on the way back to the locker room, that's when that guy tried a little dive over the fucking guardrail and tried to punch me, and I ducked it and whacked him with the racket. And then Dundee, watching from the back, who was the booker, not wrestling at the time, he got on him and punched the guy in the face about 5 times. And when I was trying to hit him again, I drew back and I hit the cop in the head. And the guy ended up suing in the newspaper article when asked why that, he made a run for her.
I got to bring something up here. Jim Cornette is like chirping Orange Cassidy about the way he looks, right? Oh. Guys. Hold on.
He did this. He said, well, he called us all sad. Sad, sorry, whatever. He called us all sad. A very inflammatory remark in those days.
You better watch out, Art.
All right, so Jim's like chirping Orange Cassidy about the way he looks. Do we all not remember the Rock and Roll Express? Like, this is the Rock and Roll Express, boys. I don't know what to tell you. Like, these two guys weren't the builtest of people. Like, I don't know. I think Orange Cassidy. I think he looks slightly better. I think Orange Cassidy looks slightly better than the Rock and Roll Express. Just saying.
Orange Cassidy may come after you.
Yeah, well, you're a sad son of a bitch. And I'll tell you, I'm sorry, little fella. I don't pick on people.
Dude, I'm sad. I'm sad I'm listening to this. And this is not a fun way to spend my day off listening to Jim Cornette complain about things. But nevertheless, I was told I did not give him a fair shot, so I will.
People have much smaller than me. So, but anyway, without AEW, he doesn't exist, so he needs to stop this. He needs to cut the head off the snake, talking about Moxley, and he's going to do it alone. He doesn't want these other guys to help him. He's going to do it alone. And then this fucking bunch of mayhem-causing rabble-rousers in this used pickup truck have been beating the shit out of the entire roster. And
Jim's mad it's a use. They should have bought a brand new truck. This group of bad individuals should have got that 1.9 financing from Ford on their new F-150. The fact that they're running around in this damn Ram truck that's used is an abomination. That's as goofy as you sound.
This little fucking scrawny pencil-necked son of a bitch, I'll just cut this fucking... I challenge you for an AEW World Title match, pal.
Scrawny.
And he finished it up.
I don't know, dog.
Because I'm Orange Cassidy and I still don't need a catchphrase.
It's a good catchphrase, by the way.
Can you imagine, Brian, a regular WWE viewer, of which there are millions, as we're aware, but I'll turn on this other wrestling program. Or, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, I like them. I'll turn on this program, and this is what they fucking see. And their horse.
Jim, what they're seeing is just a babyface promo. Like, I'm sorry, dude. You blow everything out of proportion. Like, you're crying about wrestling. You're crying about a show opening with a babyface promo after the heels got the upper hand in the last episode. Jim, like, we've produced this exact segment together previously. Like, when I worked at OVW, this would be something that we would do. We would leave the ending of the last episode where the heels got the upper hand, and guess who would come out the very next week? The babyface, and he'd say, I am going to get my win back. That's how you tell stories. Like, why are you acting like you don't remember how stories are told?
Laughing and weird. And that's the end of that experiment?
Could you imagine if you had turned on WWF TV in 1994 and Doink the Clown came out and says, I don't normally do this, but without WWE, I'm nothing. I'll do it myself.
No, actually, that's not really an apt comparison.
No, dog, because we're doing it in 2022 with Seth Rollins when CM Punk comes back, or 2024 when CM Punk comes back. I'm here to protect WWE from you. And we also did that when Cody Rhodes came back to WWE with Seth Rollins. I'm here to protect the company from you. I don't get it. I don't understand what Jim's purpose is on this planet anymore. James, why are you 1-1 and not 16/9?
Because they
not the full screen. Oh, Jesus Christ. Right. Bingo. Thanks, James. sorry about that, folks. Now we have a makes more sense.
They used Doink on top.
It's not an apt comparison, too, because that was only a couple of years into Doink. Orange Cassidy, this is 5 years now. And nothing is moving up. And they're just doubling down on everyone that drove everything down. There are little glimmers of hope, but they're doubling down, tripling down on everything that has caused the free fall in fan enthusiasm. It's not just because WWE's hot. It's because AEW is putting on a stale product. No matter how many times you see a flip that you like.
They are also sticking with the stuff that got them $100 million a year raise. I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I'm sorry, whether it's Jim Cornette, whether it's, I'll say wrestling nerds on Twitter, Reddit, what have you. Why are we LARPing as television executives? Because the real television executives, the real people who make these decisions, have decided that AEW is worth $100 million more a year. We're not talking like a couple thousand, hundreds of thousands. $100 million a year more. That's more money than Jim Cornette has probably ever drawn in professional wrestling. I mean that even in his like wrestling, even in his writing, right? I guess maybe the Attitude Era stuff, but like Jim, that's more money a year than you've made in the wrestling business in the past 25 years. Maybe, just maybe, you don't know what you're talking about anymore. And I feel that, like, I feel that there's an uneducated group in the professional wrestling space, and a lot of them hang out in this Jim Cornette echo chamber. You are literally ignoring the facts in front of you. You're literally ignoring the reality of the situation. Like, you're seeing stuff with your own eyes. Because if one thing in the professional wrestling business talks, it's money. You're sitting here saying things like, oh, well, that's why they're going downhill. They got $100 million more a year, bud. I just think maybe you're too old for the game. Jim, maybe it's time to hang up the microphone.
It doesn't change that it's a stale product. So now Orange Cassidy is getting into the main event. I told you years ago, I said, Tony's going to find a way to get the world title on Orange Cassidy. I'm not saying this is it, but this is the road to it. And again, when you need to improve your company, and you are bringing people with size, if you walk into a restaurant, you see a Shelton Benjamin, let alone a Bobby Lashley or an MVP, you're like, man, that's a big motherfucker, Jesus. I don't want to
Rick Ross.
I don't want to fight this guy. This is a big, scary guy. You see Orange Cassidy, like I could.
I love this, right? I love Jim here. They're gonna or Brian last here saying that. Well, they're gonna find a way to give Orange Cassidy the belt. Do you mean the guy with the 75% win percentage in AEW? No shit, guys. What are you talking about? The guy has had, what is this, 200 some odd matches? He's won 175 of them. I don't know what you want, right? You want people to be built up through wrestling. Obviously, Orange Cassidy has. He had a great run with the Continent, or sorry, the a Continent. Well, it's not Continental Classic. The AEW International title. They literally have built him up through a mid-card title, and now they're putting him into the world title feud. That's exactly how you're supposed to build a wrestler. Orange Cassidy's over with the fans. Look, I get it. He's not your cup of tea. You don't like him. But he's over in the building. And now you would have said the same thing about the Rock and Roll Express. If people didn't like the Rock and Roll Express, but they still said, like, well, look at the reaction the Rock and Roll Express is getting. That's all that would really matter. And the fact that you're just being obtuse and saying, like, oh, yeah, that's not the case. Like, it's ridiculous.
Take him.
And you could.
And that's the problem. So, I mean, he's out here. He's going to lead this. Meanwhile, again, MVP Lashley, Shelton, why don't they do something next week to end all this where Tony just says, I'll pay you guys, clean up my dressing room.
Well, yeah, and we're going to get there at the end of this program, but I mean, that's pretty obvious. Just if you're not going to see the Moxley minions cross-pollinating with MVP, Shelton, and Lashley, because that wouldn't work out very well. And they're doing the whole Hurt Business thing right. It's amazing. This again has become a schizophrenic program where you have this childish indie nonsense over, a guy that fucking plays pocket pool is going to get revenge for his friend Muffin Top. And nobody gives a fuck about these people except their own little indie bubble.
But there's the other problem right there. When you hear the audience reaction, or in a lot of cases, in most cases on this show, this week and most weeks, the lack of reaction, what does that tell you? They're not even that enthusiastic about it.
And at the same time, they've established a brand new top heel group. It's so badass that the people are cheering them already. They just got there. Because
it's almost like they understand that this is a television show. Right, Jim? Times have changed. There's going to be people who root for the bad guy. That I don't know if you were like, Jim, I think you're pretty tuned into the election results, Some people voted and cheer the bad guy.
They're doing wrestling, grown men doing wrestling angles that, imagine this, look somewhat convincing.
The other thing, too, is who's the baby face in AEW that isn't a sappy baby face? Like, when you really think about it, like, who have they put out there as the baby face side against Moxley? Not counting the Bucks who ran away, but Darby.
Dork Order,
Orange Cassidy, Daniel Garcia. How many of those guys have done a promo about how grateful they are to be there, how much they love it there, how they're mad at MJF or other people for not loving it enough there? Like, this is the problem. That's not the future of the company. And they're acting like...
Yeah, I agree with James in the chat here. They're missing the whole point. Do you mean that AEW is taking the time out to have the heels attack factions and groups that the fans like? Sappy, emotional baby faces. Oh, you mean they're taking out those people that pull on our heartstrings and our emotions? What do you want, guys? Like, what are you looking for? I almost want Jim Cornette to get the book for like a week in AEW and just say, all right, Jim, what is it that you're trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get heel heat on people? Which is the problem you just had. You were just mad that they didn't have enough heel heat and people were getting the Death Riders were getting cheered. Okay, so let's have them beat up emotional baby faces to try to elicit that response. No, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Fuck, guys, what do you want? I don't get it. I think Jim would book this stuff the exact same way. And I think this is a lot, like, it's so weird to me to see Jim complain about this, but like, he booked Ring of Honor. Like, Jim, you booked super indie bullshit. Like, your Ring of Honor directly has ties to all the things you hate in pro wrestling. What's going on?
Like, this is the future of the company.
You forgot about Action Andretti.
None of the... Well, you know what? He at least hasn't done that promo. They don't give him promo time.
He never gets to talk at all.
But no, seriously, right? Every single one of them, you want to get behind him, and it just turns into this sappy promo that's as cheesy as like a babyface talking to kids in the early 80s. Like, it's just cheesy, and it doesn't work. It makes people less... No, it makes them more friendly and less someone you want to cheer.
Well, yes, and also, let's be honest, even if they had material written by Roy Shire himself, they're not gonna they're kids that nobody cares about because they've been interchangeable and they've done the same shit over and over for the last time.
All right, he referenced Roy Shire. He was born in 1921, died in 1992. Was an American professional wrestler, promoter, worked for Big Time Wrestling, San Francisco. Okay. NWA, so like an old NWA guy. Jim Cornette has like one frame of reference. That's wrestling before the Bush administration, and that's all he really cares about. Oh, guys from Georgetown. I don't know him at all.
However many years, and in one of these brawls they had, one of the Dork Order guy, is that Reynolds? Alex Reynolds. He's the one with the long hair, right? And he had his ribs taped up.
Yeah.
I said, what the fuck? When he first came in and somebody grabbed him and dropped him on the railing crotch first, I said, who is that chick in a tube top? I was like, who is that? It just came out of nowhere. It looked like a girl in a tube top. Alex Reynolds with his fucking rib tape on. And it's just these guys have been job guys and or willy-nilly, wishy-washy, interchangeable, indie wrestlers, and nobody's produced them out of it, and nobody's booked them out of it. And now that's what's running in to fucking save the company. Again, Shelton and...
Here's the thing, guys. And I think Jim understands. There's escalation, right? Escalation in the storytelling. You're not going to send your biggest, baddest guys after them at the beginning. I think that's pretty simple. I think we all understand that when you have a brand new faction, you're not going to throw everybody at them at the beginning. You need to let them escalate. You need to let them keep having issues that allow other people to say, maybe, just maybe, we should band together as the upper card and stop these guys. I don't know if he wants like the event, like, for example, not sure if Jim, he's referenced comic books, right? The Avengers movie was not the first movie. There were other movies that eventually led us to that. The big group team up against the big bad faction does not happen immediately. It doesn't happen like that in any of the stories. That's not the way it's meant to be. You have to let them build up. It's the same reason the Bucks are leaving, because storyline wise, well, why are the Bucks just hanging out, right? Well, now they're not. That makes sense. They bailed, so they don't have to deal with these guys. Now, eventually, they'll probably come back as the baby faces with Kenny Omega and say, we're here to fight for AEW. And then Jim's going to complain about they're cutting babyface promos about AEW again. Which, I don't know what Jim wants out of this product at all.
Lashley could, just step in and easily take care of the situation instead of these fucking dozen guys.
Oh, he kills me. Dude, it's a scripted show, Jim. It's a scripted show. It's a scripted show. It's a scripted show, Jim. Stop trying to apply that kind of logic. I'm sorry. Jim, if you are trying to apply this logic here, the Bloodline storyline should have been the worst thing in the entire world for you. Oh, the babyfaces don't realize the heels are going to cheat to help Roman Reigns retain. Maybe they should make a friend. Maybe they should make a friend to help them fight the Bloodline. No, we'll just all suffer from dumb babyface syndrome and just keep running into the Bloodline and getting destroyed. What do you want, Jim? Like, it is when Jim even mentioned earlier when he said, like, people, we'd send a fly right through WWE, but we seem to nitpick everything AEW does. Yeah, dude, you are doing that.
Anyway, moving on. The long-awaited showdown between Adam Cole and Buddy Matthews, where Buddy Matthews last week said, I'm going to show everybody you're fragile. Or fragile, whichever way you pronounce that.
Fragile, Jim,
And
it's not Italian or nothing.
Visually, this was kind of ridiculous. Buddy looks like he's got 100 pounds on Adam Cole. This looked like the paper boy had, jumped into the fucking ring against goddamn Lex Luger. And
with a fake tan. If the paper boy got a really, really bad orange fake tan, that's what
that's another part of the problem is that we've said before, if Adam had a tan, maybe he'd look a little more tone. But they gave him some kind of, what did they use? Pam spray? That fucking cooking spray? Between the
Bronzer.
fake spray. Well, it wasn't bronze. It was fucking between the fake spray tan and the flabby thighs. He looked like a Simpsons character.
Okay, I understand. Adam Cole, not a body guy. That's fine. You don't like Adam Cole's body? That's cool. I get it. But, buddy, let's not act like these guys didn't look like they would just came off the 9 to 5 off the docks. Like, I don't know what to tell you. These pictures of the Jim Cornette's teams. Like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, it's not there. Like, oh god, Captain Hat. It is funny to me, and maybe we're looking at this through like the modern lens. But these guys weren't body guys either. I mean, maybe that was body guy back in the day, but Jesus Christ, guys, they weren't Greek gods.
Sure.
You have Vince brain. You spent too much time on Jim. You have Vince brain.
I don't know what's happened. And is there some way that he cannot wrestle in swim trunks and maybe long tights or goddamn something?
Wetsuit. He loves the ocean. A wetsuit.
Anything.
He dreamt of being an astronaut.
Something a little more baggy. Could he, I don't know. But they had a match, and it was like if you overlooked, I mean, Adam can work if you overlook what he's become physically and what Buddy Matthews looks like. But the break spot was Adam took a bump to the floor, and he's just leaning on the apron, and he's ignoring where Buddy is until Buddy runs down the apron and throws a kick and missed him by a fucking foot. If you go back on the slow-mo, if you DVR'd it, and you could tell it missed, and Adam sold it like he'd been shot with a cannon, and down he went, and they went to the break.
Did you notice that the fans were cheering Buddy? Even though Adam Cole's been brought in and they've tried to reestablish him now as a babyface again, they were all cheering for Buddy, and I think a lot of it was because of the appearance. When you see them in there together, it's ridiculous.
Well, and also
Yeah, dude, it's the appearance. It's not the fact that the House of Black have been over as an act since their inception in AEW. The House of Black is cool. A lot of people like the House of Black. I would very much like to see the House of Black eventually, which I think is what they're going towards, take on John Moxley's faction. I think that eventually we are getting there. That's why we've seen the babyface turn of the entire House of Black. The handshakes from Brody King, the handshakes from Buddy Matthews, and then the embrace, the hug from this week's show with Adam Cole. And then Malachi Black leaves through the face tunnel, which is good. I like that. It's almost like they're cheering a team who is slowly becoming babyfaces, who are becoming a good guy faction, who are also a very over faction.
They cheered Adam coming back because he returned.
But no, it's because Buddy has bigger biceps. That is completely right, Brian Last. It's because Buddy has bigger biceps than Adam Cole.
From a long absence from an injury, that always gets you cheered unless you're, a dastardly heel, which he wasn't. But then now that they've heard the explanation that he's explained for why all these things went on a year ago, that it doesn't make any sense, I think they've all rolled their eyes, haven't they?
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's like I said to you, I think the way he was booked from the moment he got there, it began with the MJF stuff. I didn't like it, but it got over with those fans. And then that all went haywire. And then he's been a babyface and a heel and back to a babyface 3 times, like without having a match. Like it happened over a couple of years. And again, the appearance thing, it's part of the story. I hate to say it, but it is.
Well, and then again.
Yeah, I love the fact they're like, I mean, let's be honest. Adam Cole has never been a body guy, which is fine. I'm not Vince pilled. I'm not McMahon brained. I don't think that you have to have a good body. What Jim talked about earlier was the fact that Adam Cole can work. He can look good in the ring. He can wrestle. I'm sorry, but this is wrestling. This isn't professional bodybuilding, and I understand there's going to be a large contingent of people who say, well, you should have a good body if you're a professional wrestler. We got those guys. Let's get guys who don't have a good body. We got those guys too. Maybe we just get a guy who looks kind of normal. Now, maybe allow Adam Cole to get a little bigger, maybe spend some time in the gym, because he just got back from a surgery where he had an injury so bad that his entire ankle just disintegrated. And then they said, you know what? We can't fix this. We're going to go have to get a cadaver bone. His injury was so bad that they were like, we need to go get a dead guy's ankle and put it in here. Like, he's part Frankenstein, and these guys are like, you could be a little jacker. Like, what are we talking about, guys?
Buddy Matthews, look at the way he looks. And we talked about he's the one in the House of Black that can work. But they come back from the break.
Everyone in the House of Black can work. And the House of Blech, like the House of Black is good. I don't care what you have to say about anything else in AEW, Jim. You're wrong. You can have your own feelings about stuff, but like, you're completely wrong about the House of Black. Everyone in the House of Black is a good worker. And I am including Julia Hart in that, right? Julia Hart hadn't had a ton of matches before she got into AEW, and she was great. She worked very well. Can't wait for her to come back too.
Immediately, Buddy gives Cole a superplex, and they just rolled through, and Adam Cole just picked Buddy up and suplexed him after being superplexed. And then Buddy's working on Adam's bad ankle. And so he goes to the floor, and the doctor just comes up and starts checking the leg, and the referee is there letting the doctor check the leg and telling Buddy Matthews, get back. The doctor is checking the leg while Adam Cole is on the floor. Didn't that used to be a count out?
Yes.
No, Jim, it's referee's discretion, buddy. You understand that. And the ref coming into the ring and taking a look at a competitor is to be more sports focused. What do you not understand about that? When you go to watch UFC, sometimes somebody takes a beating so bad, the doctor has to come and be like, I got to check this guy. Like, you don't be able to fight anymore. And then they do, and they make that decision. Like, that's part of the storytelling. It's weird when these guys want to apply logic to things, but you realize that they're doing it in bad faith when you can easily just say, it's sports, babe. Like, they're trying to do the sports thing. Think for 1 second longer than you typically think, Jim, and you'll figure out the answer. Because it's not hard. I'm sitting here telling you.
Thrown from the ring or fell from the ring and could not get back in by the count of 10. That's a count out. They never said that the doctor is allowed. If the doctor stands up and says, oh, now wait a minute. Unlike all the phony shit you've been looking at, this guy's really hurt now, so we're stopping everything until then fucking count him the fuck out. If the doctor needs to look at a motherfucker, chances are he's not going to be back in the ring by the 10 count. Count his ass out.
But the other part of the problem is psychologically, I don't think any of this left the audience wanting to see Adam Cole come back and win. I think everyone kind of wanted Buddy to win.
For him, if anything, like, can you get that poor little thing out of there before he gets hurt?
But then when they do an injury angle in the middle of the match,
yeah,
then it becomes even more offensive when he comes back and kicks out of everything and somehow wins.
Damn, dude. I guess you didn't like the original ECW One Night Stand three-way dance match where Terry Funk leaves injured. This has happened throughout wrestling. This spot where like somebody gets injured and then they do like the fighting spirit of 1776 with like the bandage over their head, and they come back and they're like, I can do it. I can win this match. That's like a trope. Like, that happens so much. And the fact that we're complaining about something that is pretty bog standard in professional wrestling is also leading me to believe that Jim Cornette doesn't really care about anything he's saying.
Well, yeah, because the fans did the referee's count for him. They counted out loud to 10. You heard them, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're doing it and still the referee didn't pick up on it.
They counted out the baby face.
Yes. And then the doctor starts helping Adam Cole to the back, and Adam's like, "Oh, I'll hobble to the back with you." And Buddy Microphone.
Buddy Microphone. That'll be his new gimmick. Maybe it'll help.
He's a better fucking gimmick, so there's Buddy Microphone. Buddy Matthews got on the microphone and goaded him coming back and called him a little bitch, which he was, because he's being helped out limping from this match that Buddy should have won already by count out. But now that he's goading him and calls him a little bitch, then Adam limps back and the doctor says, okay.
We're not that lucky, Russell Rant.
And then they start going back and forth, and Buddy tries to get Adam Cole to throw the towel in, and Adam throws it at Buddy and kicks him 5 or 6 times. And
what's so funny to me is like AEW has gone through the painstaking process of laying this out, right? Of saying they mentioned it, even Jim knows it. They laid it out when he said Buddy Matthews was going to show how fragile Adam Cole is. And then he does something, and Adam Cole seems fragile. And then Buddy Matthews takes the mic mid-match and says, I was right. You're fragile. You're not what you used to be, which is a thing people say about Adam Cole, which is something I like about AEW, is they'll take real life feelings and storylines and stuff like that like the internet, and kind of weave it in. I like that. I think that is really good. And Jim and them obviously understand what's going on. They've laid that out. The fact that they're like acting obtuse about it now is just in bad faith.
He lifts him, he gets a 2 count. And then Buddy gets a buckle bomb and a curb stomp and gets a 1 count on this guy that was being carried out by the fucking doctor a couple minutes ago.
Almost like he was motivated by the words that were said to him.
Adam Cole just, fuck it, he's mad now. Hits him with a Panama Sunrise. Buddy falls to the floor. He gives him a Panama Sunrise on the floor, which looks like it hurts the fucking giver more than the givee, doesn't it?
Yes, very much so.
The Panama Sunrise looks like it hurts the giver more than the givee. It's a Canadian destroyer. I don't know if you understand this, right? I need to find like an ROH clip so I don't get popped by WWE. What is this? All right, this is filmed from someone's like the house.
Oh yeah. So you know,
This is not Panama. Okay.
What?
Well, here's a Panama Sunrise, not from Adam Cole, from the top. Where does that hurt? I'm sorry. Like, where does this a flipping pile driver hurt the giver? It doesn't, bud. It doesn't. Jim Cornette has surrounded himself, as CM Punk would say, by glad-handing idiot yes men. That does not... It's a pile driver, Jim.
And then he rolled him back in the ring and hit him with a knee to the back of the head. 1, 2, 3. So after all that, not only was it a rotten finish, but they just beat him flat. And as I said, the match was okay when they were working, if you accept the visual ridiculousness or ridiculosity of it. But then, the doctor thing and the whole thing and the blah, blah, blah. And then he beats Buddy flat. Then he gets on the microphone, Adam does, and says, Buddy, you reminded me of who the real Adam Cole is. Thank you. And they shake hands. Why was the goddamn...
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, the heel was like, well, finally, I've been recognized for my good works.
This is the second member of the House of Black to have a weird babyface turn.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. They shake hands.
It's the second member of the House of Black to have a, quote, weird babyface turn. almost like the House of Black is becoming babyface. Almost like the House of Black is respecting their fellow opponents and saying, like, the House of Black has never been like, we're going to beat you up for the sake of beating you up. The House of Black has always been around to teach people lessons, to have people better than they were before they entered the program with the House of Black. They try to change AEW, much like the Death Riders and Moxley are trying to change AEW. These are two ideological groups that are very similar in their missions, but are very different in their tactics.
And the lights go out. And when the lights come back on, Adam Cole is standing there shaking hands with Malachi Black, and Buddy is watching him. So somehow Adam Cole didn't realize that a motherfucker let go of his hand in the dark. And what the he couldn't tell the guy let go of his hand because the lights went out. And he's surprised, and Malachi Black looks at him, and Adam Cole rolls out and walks off.
Yeah, dude, Jim, it's the spooky thing. They just pop up and materialize. It's not supposed to be real. This is theatrics for the sake of a television show. When you're trying to apply the logic like you are, you're not showing, like, you're purposely not suspending your disbelief just so you can complain about things. The Undertaker and Kane used to cast physical lightning for fun, and then we just never saw it used in the match. No matter how much the Undertaker was getting beat, the Undertaker was getting decimated by Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and then he didn't cast lightning to shock Brock Lesnar and win the match. See? You can literally do this about anything. And that's the thing. Jim picks and chooses when he wants to deploy these tactics. It's insane to me to think of him as a ideologically consistent person, because he's not. He's a bad faith grifter, and that's all this has been the entire time. And we're only 20 minutes into this hour and 49. I got to get through this thing.
He also has respect for Adam Cole. Again, the House of Black, Darby, Brody King, who had beaten the shit out of Darby apparently for years, inside and outside the ring, like they've done angles and stuff, like at record stores. He was concerned about Darby's well-being and that he would die if he went to the mountain. And here, the heel who was getting cheered the entire match to the point where the fans counted out the babyface while the doctors were checking on him. He did it just to earn, or not even to earn, just to prove that he has respect already for Adam Cole. Explain this. You can't, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Explain it? Okay. Buddy Matthews went in with the idea of exposing Adam Cole for being as fragile as Buddy Matthews thought he was going to be. When called out, Adam Cole fired up and eventually showed that he was not as fragile. Buddy Matthews was wrong. And in his being wrong, it seems that he has developed a respect for Adam Cole, shaking Adam Cole's hand. I don't know, dog. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I understand if you're upset, like, if you're looking at the traditional of heel versus babyface, the House of Black is more heel. But they're not your straight up heels where we're mean for mean's sake and we're bad for bad's sake. They have had a mission statement that's been quite clear since their genesis in AEW. I don't think that if anything, I think that they're staying very true to the characters here. And the fact that, like, we're still not picking up on this shows either an unwillingness to learn, an inability to learn, or just bad faith takes. You can pick your choice there.
How long did you I can't speak. Did you write down how long the match went? How long did it go?
Well, we are 30 minutes into the show, and all we've seen so far is the interview with the mascot and this match. So yeah, lengthy.
But you see, there it is again. Adam Cole, like I said with Orange Cassidy, the "can I take him" test. You look at Adam Cole and you're like, How come Buddy Matthews is having such a hard time with this guy? I'd kill him. It's the same thing. Buddy Matthews looks like he would fit in with the Lashleys, with the Shelton Benjamins, with the main eventers, with the people who look like wrestlers. Not the, again, just start a division.
The bad thing about Buddy is he can work too rather than just looking good.
Start a division for just 160-pound men. Do it. Just put them all in one division.
Wait a minute. Now, hold on. Drop that last qualifier. Just they started this division for 160-pounders. Well, then again, you're gonna stand Conor McGregor next to Adam Cole and go, fuck.
That's true. That's true. How about wrestlers that go to the gym versus wrestlers that don't?
Well, and we're not done actually here now. With this whole angle, because once they went to the break and they went back into the locker room where there's Adam Cole, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Roderick Strong, 4 sterling white meat baby faces. And Adam Cole, because what have we said about Adam Cole primarily from day one, that his strongest point is that he can cut a convincing promo, that he has inflection and he has delivery. And you technically tend to believe that Adam Cole means every word that he's saying here with this delivery, and that means that you have to think that Adam Cole is the biggest bullshit artist in the world, because what he's saying makes no sense. He's still trying to make MJF the heel. That's why we had to fucking strike first, and we had to be.
So I'm going to explain the passing of time to Jim Cornette. So bear with me here. Jim, time passes, right? The time keeps ticking. You're familiar with the concept. A watch, if you're not, this is the thing that Vince Russo used to wear on a chain around his neck. So time is how we measure the passage from one point to now, right? And in that time, Adam Cole has been injured. MJF has not been. He's been on television. He's been doing certain things. He's been being a heel. So, when you're a heel and you have somebody who is returning in professional wrestling, someone who's been out for a year, right? A fan favorite who has been out for a year comes back, he is not getting a heel reaction. That's going to be a lot like Triple H coming back when he blew out his quads and he came back in the all denim fit and in jacked as hell. Maybe if Adam Cole came back tan and jacked as hell and a denim jacket, maybe he wouldn't have a problem with it. But we've seen this all the time. You have to book and write your show in the world, in the context of which you actually exist. And if you just book it in the way that, oh, he's coming back as a heel, we better flip MJF, who's been a heel, who's been messing up Daniel Garcia the entire time, telling that story. It's a no-win situation. When you're not using the context of what's actually going on, you're not using the context of wrestling as a, art form, and you're just saying, well, I don't understand. He didn't come back as a heel. Yeah, dude, the guy he's feuding against is a heel. The guy he is, personally, Adam Cole, people wanted him back. He's never going to get a heel reaction off the jump. So, make him a babyface against MJF, who's been a heel for the last 11 months since Adam Cole's been gone. You had injuries. Yes, that happens. When injuries happen, you have to change your stories. We've done that so many times together at OVW. Jim, injuries happen. You get that. But you don't apply that when it doesn't come to your things. Whenever it's not directly involving you, you seem to forget everything you've ever learned about professional wrestling.
This because I wasn't gonna sit around and let MJF do to me what he did to everybody else. Does that explain why when Adam Cole was in a scooter and a walking boot from a severe ankle break that Roddy and Taven and Bennett were making him do their yard work? How does that fit into this whole goddamn thing? What?
I forgot about that.
Yes. None of this.
Where's Wardlow?
Because that was still part of that story. Jim, Brian, I don't know what you understand. After the devil reveal, everyone in that storyline was hurt. I don't think it's a good use of your time to continue to tell a story that you can't pay off because you didn't know how long Adam Cole was going to be out. A year. You didn't know how long MJF was going to be out. 6 months. It's kind of ridiculous, guys. Look, you can cherry pick and say all these bad things. Trust me, and AEW has a ton of things that you can be upset about. Their production is lacking, in my opinion, in a lot of areas. You want to be upset about. Yeah, there are other things you can be upset about. Their women's division is hot and cold. It's gotten better. I will say that it has gotten better. There's at least more than the women's title storyline. But to say like, why did they drop this story when both of the guys were injured? I don't know, G. Because both the guys were injured. Like, you get that. You understand that.
Oh, where's Wardlow?
Where's Wardlow?
There you go. That's something you can actually complain about. Where'd he go?
I'm not going to let MJF do to me what he did to Wardlow. Well, then why did you find Wardlow and say, hey, you're the last motherfucker to beat this guy? Why don't you come in here instead of these 3 wombats I've got behind me?
They tried that, right?
You made me do yard work when I was in a walking boot and a fucking serious injury. And they're out there making me sweat fucking cutting the goddamn grass. Because of why? We never figured out why. Because they were bros. He was bro chachos with MJF. Well, if they were making him if MJF and Adam Cole were a unit of friends and bro chachos and this tag team, but Adam Cole was secretly working with Roderick Strong and Matt Taven and Mike Bennett to lull MJF into a false sense of security and strike like they did, then if MJF was already bro-chachos with Adam Cole, why did they have to go over and above?
I do love the fact that like Jim has purposely messed up everybody else's name, but he hits bro-chachos. I think bro-chachos is super over with Jim Cornette. But no, why did they do that, Jim? Well, it's to build a sympathetic babyface in Adam Cole and to help continue on that MJF character. MJF is a bad guy, but now he sees somebody else is treating his new best friend, Adam Cole, very poorly, which creates friction, which allows MJF to fall more into the realm of I'm helping Adam Cole. I'm helping my friend get away from his bad friends, only to break MJF's heart later when it's revealed that they were all working against him the whole time. You remember the movie Carrie, Jim? You're old. Remember when everyone was like, you're the prom queen, we love you. And then they like dumped the pig's blood on her. That's the point. They want to build MJF up, make him feel like he's being the hero, make him feel like I'm the good guy here, only to hurt him. Because what is more unnatural with MJF? It's unnatural for him to be a babyface. He's just a heel. That's his character. By allowing him to come out of his comfort zone and be vulnerable, it hurts him a lot more, character-wise, when he is betrayed.
To prove to MJF that Adam Cole was not like Roddy and Taven and Bennett by having Roddy and Taven and Bennett mistreat Adam Cole. What the flying fuck?
Sometimes there are no answers.
Except the one I gave.
So speaking of no answers, here came Don Fallis, the leader of the Fallis family, and he brought out, the bald-headed geek. Remember those Jimmy Valiant promos from 1986? Paul Jones, you're going to be a bald-headed geek, baby. Woo, mussy. He brought out bald-headed Kyle Fletcher.
Do you think if that was done today, the bald...
This is why you're my GOAT, Jim. This is why you're my GOAT. Your name game is undefeated. It will continue to always be undefeated. You got them, babe. You just roasting these guys. You're like, what does your name sound like? And then they got you. Like Jim is better than any middle school bully that you can imagine. He's got it. I'm wrong. Jim has the juice. I'm completely wrong about it. Jim has it still.
Bald-headed community would be protesting against AEW.
No, I don't think there would be protests. I just think that nobody gives a shit anymore because all these dimwits fucking shave their heads on purpose. So, they somehow have gotten the idea because 3 people in the world looked bald, Steve Austin being one of them. Now every wrestler has.
I will say, like, the him cutting his hair promo was interesting. I thought it was very akin to like the Britney Spears, like shaving her head out of like a manic episode, which, okay, cool. If that's what we're doing, that's fine. But Kyle Fletcher, wow, Jim, you've mind jacked me. Kyle Fletcher does look unrecognizable. I didn't realize how much his hair was a part of him. And also, I think that works as the story, because when you see him now, you do not think of like a Will Ospreay clone. You're like, that dude, I mean, he can wrestle like Will Ospreay, but he does not look like him. He does not have that flow. He does not feel like he fits in with that mold anymore. I think, personally, what they did was very good because of the jarring nature of the way that he looks. Every time I see him on television the last few weeks, I just like look at him like, who? Like if I flipped it, like, or scroll through TikTok, I saw a clip from the match. I'm like, who's this guy with the little fade? I'm like, oh God, that's Kyle Fletcher. And I think it works. I think that it was I don't want to say a weird promo. It was definitely something different. But the overall results from that, I think, is what is telling that story. And I think it works because I, as a viewer at home, think he is unrecognizable. I don't think of him as Will Ospreay anymore. He has accomplished exactly what he said he was going to do.
To be bald. I saw a bald woman on TV the other day. And I think it was on purpose. I'm not saying she had been through treatments or something. I'm thinking this was a choice she made, and somebody in her family should have intervened.
Maybe she joined the Nightmare Collective.
No, that girl's hair's had time to grow back. It's been 3 years since we've seen her.
Mel.
I used to think that was the Bee Gees song. What? Bald-headed woman to me. See, the AM radio back in those days, it wasn't like the Raycons.
But if you stop and think about it, why would they be singing this song?
Well, exactly. That's why I wondered about them for so long.
Meanwhile, they're covered in hair.
Yeah, that's why I figured maybe it's some kind of goddamn deal they've got.
More Than a Woman, a Bee Gees song from 1977. There's an old reference as well. Jim has referenced people born in the early 1900s so many times. So many times. This guy has to go.
They're the ones that want the hair.
Wrestling re-education camp.
If you don't have hair, they're not going to be there, or whatever the case. So
where were we going?
Well, we're talking about Kyle Fletcher being bald-headed, and they called out Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay didn't come out.
I got to pee. I got my headphones. I'll be listening.
So Kyle started talking again, and suddenly music played, and out came the announcers identified him as Mark Davis. And nobody in that building knew who the fuck this was. And Tony Schiavone, well, listen to the ovation for the return of Mark Davis. Nobody they were playing music. That was the ovation. The fans were going, huh? And he was dressed like he had been changing his oil on a Sunday afternoon in his driveway. And somebody said, hey, go down to the wrestling show. And Mark Davis is upset at what Kyle did. And I just wrote, this is insane. I'm watching a fucking wrestler have an argument with some stagehand at this point. I mean, and, Mark said, we used to have an empire. The fuck? That was the name of your team. How about if you and me, Brian, go as the 12-inch dicks? Does that mean we've got 12-inch dicks, or is that just what we decided to call ourselves?
That means you're riding my coattails. That's
hey!
I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure, Jim, when they come out, it says United Empire on the 150-foot television on the screen.
I'll tell you what.
Wait, where's the we in this conversation?
We wouldn't
White
have
man.
we wouldn't have a total of 24 inches without my 3.5. So anyway, Kyle told Davis that you'll always have a spot in the family, but you better make your decision pretty quick and make it right. And Mark Davis said, we had a whole empire, not just a family, and you destroyed it. And he walked off away. And Mark Davis versus Kyle Fletcher. I don't know if WrestleMania is big enough for that one. Do you?
You know, it was disappointing on two ends. It was disappointing. The fans had no idea.
Jim, are you upset that the mid-card feud isn't big enough to be at WrestleMania? There's mid-card feuds at WrestleMania. Buddy. The Authors of Pain. What was it? What was the Philadelphia street fight? Was it the Hurt Business versus God, what was it? Let's see. Let's look at the WrestleMania card from this year. Was it WrestleMania 40? Yeah. Let's look at the card. WrestleMania 40 card. Here we go. All right. He's sitting here talking about, was this a big enough feud? I mean, buddy, the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley. That's not even the Hurt Business. The Street Profits and Bobby Lashley versus the Authors of Pain and Karrion Kross. The Final Testament. That was big enough for WrestleMania. No, it wasn't. Nobody cares. No one in the chat can tell me what that story was before WrestleMania. I guarantee it. Or the loot. I mean, I guess like this is fine, but this is the only part of this you really care about, right? Jimmy J Uso is big enough. Oh, you mean the random, the random women's 6-woman tag match, buddy? I don't know what you want, Jim. Those feuds sucked as well.
Who he was or what any of this was about.
So
everything.
Yes, Jim, to answer your question, I think Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis is big enough for WrestleMania.
Kyle Fletcher, since Mark Davis got hurt, has been to get him away from the whole Aussie Open thing. He dyed his hair. They put him with Callis. Got a bunch of high-profile losses on TV. Then they started doing the thing with him and Ospreay. It's a few months now. They even involved MJF in it at one point. So now they're bringing back Mark Davis. Now, none of those fans know who he is. And on the other side of the coin, if you're a fan of Aussie Open, this is the Aussie Open breakup. This was horrible from both ends of it.
From both ends.
Right? Think about it. If you're a fan of these guys and you've been watching them in New Japan or Australia, wherever for years, this was the big breakup.
Well, those 17 people are going to be fucking pissed off, I'll tell you that. But no, again, they're in a building. They played music and put up the United Empire logo, and they have Mark Davis walk out, again, looking like some guy just wandered in. He'd been to Popeyes down the street, and they wouldn't let him walk up to.
Jim's mad that somebody came to the ring in street clothes. Why are you so upset about this, dude? It's a weird nitpick. Like, I'm sorry, I keep pausing this because I got to keep bringing this up. Jim is just nitpicking the dumbest little shit. I'm sorry, and if he is the genius voice of your generation, I apologize. Read a book. Is this guy he doesn't get it anymore? He's completely lost the plot, and it only goes one way. I don't get his appeal.
To the drive-through. Somebody said, "Here's a free wrestling ticket." What are the people supposed to do when they can't tell who the fuck this is, that it's even a wrestler and it's a guy that looks like they've never seen him before?
What do you mean they don't know he's a wrestler, Jim? You just explained that he came out to music, his name on the Tron, and then his tag team name on the Tron. You literally are contradicting yourself. You don't, you senile old man. Like, you just don't get it. Like, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the target market for this doesn't listen to the words that Jim says. They repeat the buzzwords. Because if you were to apply a slight bit of logic to what you just said, Jim, you're an idiot.
You know what he should have done? He should have done that old thing where he comes out and he says, "It's me, I'm back, Joe Stevens," and get a reaction. "I lied, I'm Mark Davis." See? None of you even know who I am.
You know what? They used to do that back in the Tennessee territory in the 60s when they would unmask a fucking masked wrestler. They just give us some gimmick name. When they I've got it in my notes somewhere, but I can't. But when they unmasked the Mummy in Louisville, they gave his name as some fuck.
What are you saying, Shatter? It says he means he doesn't look like a wrestler, as in what he's wearing, what he's talking about. Well, yeah. I mean, if he's not coming out to wrestle, like Seth Rollins rarely comes out in wrestling gear. Seth Rollins mainly comes out to cut promo in some weird fashion, like in some clothes. Like he doesn't look like a wrestler. He looks like a runway model. What are we talking about?
Fucking bullshit. Some guy I've never heard from never heard from. No, we broke up and I've never heard again. No, I never heard of.
He was a great pen pal as the Mummy, and then once he lost that.
But anyway, nevertheless, that was that. So I hate to see the United Empire come to this, because they were united and an empire, and now they're ununited, and they're very unempirical.
God, shut up, dude.
So,
I guess that means Osprey, by the way, is a little bit of a sabbatical in England. Is that the only way to take it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he couldn't drive. He couldn't get to the fucking building. He had nobody to drive him because he got no driver's license. We established that. Remember, he said he'd never driven in the United States before. That was a while back.
That was when they cut his tires for his car.
Yeah, when he was about to attempt to drive to the hotel. They found his tires were cut, and they made the whole spot about Bar Brady. I said, have you ever driven in the United States? No. Where were we going from here? Is there more of this?
You know what? We were going to go, and we were going to talk about more of this. But, sometimes in the middle of these shows,
if he craps on Seth's gear as well, then he understands that, like, some wrestlers don't wear. Ric Flair wears suits to the ring. Ric Flair, wrestlers sometimes don't dress like wrestlers. And I think he's mad about, I guess he's mad about the fashion, right? He's mad about the style. It's no longer. If Mark Davis came out in a suit, he wouldn't be complaining and saying, this guy looks like an executive more than he looks like a wrestler. It's just about styles, right?
Jim, sometimes you just need a break from the action. Sometimes you need something else. Sometimes you may want to go and just do some shopping.
All right.
Or maybe you want this.
Well, you know what?
They're there for you.
Shopify. So give Shopify.
Come on.
He still chooses to walk through the arena.
And okay, here comes Moxley, and he's trying to do something with that decrepit physical appearance of his. And Claudio.
Are we saying Moxley looks bad again?
But they just can't be brought to associate with the riffraff over there in the locker room.
They've now established he has a locker room of his own. He still chooses to walk through the arena.
And okay, here comes Moxley, and he's trying to do something with that decrepit physical appearance of his. And Claudio's a fucking giant.
Jon Moxley, his physical appearance. I don't know, dude. He kind of looks like your boys. I mean, he's more vascular. He kind of looks like your boys in the Rock and Roll Express. Not sure what to tell you. Like this, I don't know, dude. I think he looks pretty cool. I think he looks pretty muscular there. This is from 2024, I think. Yeah, published earlier this year. This is when he was in New Japan. I don't know, dog. I don't think he looks bad.
And old Pac, well, he's just ripped and shredded.
Yes, he is.
And Marina Shafir, she's the toughest one of the bunch. And then here comes Yuta. He looks like, this fucking street gang brought their weed dealer with them. Well, look at him. What? It's like, at least here's.
All right, he's back. Jim's back. He's back. The goat's back. He's back. He's got the juice, full juice. That's so funny. I mean, okay, you can say what you want about Wheeler Yuta, right? He's not a body guy. He's pretty thin, but can wrestle, right? Put him in the Adam Cole category. But I don't think Wheeler Yuta has a bad body at all. I think Wheeler Yuta is I think it looks fine. I mean, when you put him next to, hold on, when you put him next to Pac and Claudio, yeah, I can see why you want to bring that up. Oh my god, you know Wheeler Yuta. This is funny though. That was funny.
Because this guy, look, okay, he can kick somebody's ass, and that guy's fucking huge, and that guy's jacked up, and look, she's a badass from the jiu-jitsu world, and there's...
Yeah, we told Ronnie he can come along for the ride.
Yeah, Ronnie, did you bring the stuff? Maybe it's Weeder Yuta. But then again...
Weed dealer Yuta.
Here we go. Even if this whole deal already wasn't confusing and the whole 9 yards with it, what in the fuck is Moxley talking about in his audition reel for the indie movies, the whole 9 yards? How can anybody take him seriously as the world champion or as a badass if he's either wrestling or talking about the biggest joke wrestler on a roster of jokey wrestlers? Think about it. Here's their world champion, and he's beating everybody up on the fucking roster, and he's got this whole group with him, and he's cutting a promo about Orange fucking Cassidy.
Jim, of all the people on this planet, I would think you would understand this more than anybody else. Moxley's statement from the beginning has been, I don't like these people out here who are dancing and half-assing and acting like we've actually accomplished something here in AEW. This is precisely the people he is going after. He is going after the people that you don't like for the reasons that you don't like them. And he still can't get over it with you. This is precisely what you don't like. You don't like the guys. You don't like Orange Cassidy. He's going after Orange Cassidy because the same reason that he went after Private Party. You guys are dancing and singing and having a good time and acting like everything's okay. But no, there's work to be done. That's exactly what he is doing.
And then after he does the promo where he's really ranting and raving in the circles that he talks in about our little puppy pockets, you didn't challenge me, I challenged you, which I think he did last week. But then suddenly they grab Wheeler, their boy Wheeler, and they jerk him down and they put a chair around his neck and they're going to fucking break his neck. But then Pocket slides in and tackles Moxley, and they all jump him, and they let Wheeler go, and he gets up and starts kicking Pockets.
Why did Pockets come?
It's almost like they use the relationship previously established from years of AEW television to tell the story that even though Orange Cassidy knows that Wheeler Yuta is a part of this faction, he wants to help his friend. Almost like Orange Cassidy is a consummate babyface that does not want to see anybody hurt. It's almost like he's ideologically consistent, which is very rare for a professional wrestling character. He is going to try to do whatever he can to help his friends. No matter what has happened, he is loyal to his friends to a fault, to the point to where he got his ass kicked by his friends. I don't know, Jim. Seems to work.
To save Yuta.
This is his friend, Brian.
Why was that the moment that would have triggered him? For them to beat one of their own.
Behead him.
They all used to be friends, and they just know that maybe one of these days, one of their friends will see the light. And I don't fucking know.
I don't think either of these guys have had a real friendship. When you have somebody you care about and they start acting bad, you don't just like write them off and you're just like, nope, I don't care. Like, no, man, you're like, I want my friend back. I want to help them. And if my friend is going to be beheaded by his new friends, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to attempt to save him.
And then here comes the Dork Order in, and the heels no-sold him and just beat him up. And that's where I mentioned that Reynolds guy with his ribs taped up looked like a girl in a tube top. And
Jim, tube tops don't go around the waist. Glad I could clear that up.
They got pockets down and they were about to break his neck. When here comes Darby from the ceiling, I'm not ribbing. And he drops dead, but at least the fans woke up there, because until this point it was like, oh, fucking come on. But when they see Darby, okay, somebody's finally over. And boom. And they start cheering. But even Shivani references, well, so-and-so has to come over to help Darby get disconnected. I'm like, what the fuck? And then here comes Darby.
Dude, don't act like you didn't know Sting did that stuff, bro. It's the same stuff that happened with Sting, man. I guess, like, you want to be upset that he can't unhook himself. Okay, that's probably also a good thing because Owen Hart, right? Jim, you're just complaining about every little thing. And look, this is what I'm doing to you in turn. I'm nitpicking every little thing you're saying because I think your nitpicks are really ridiculous. I think your takes on wrestling are outdated, outplayed. They're played out. You got no more juice. You make fun of people's names, and that's about all you do. I don't get the people who still run to your defense and run to your, like, to say that you're still something that's relevant. You're not.
Darby's beating up Claudio, and some more job guys come out. There's Garcia, there's Private Party, and everybody goes over the rail and fights into the arena, except Private Party stays in the ring. And then the Buckaroos music starts playing because they're scheduled to face Private Party, so they're coming into the arena down the entranceway while these other guys have gotten up in the stands, and you just see them just kind of put their arm on each other's shoulders and just walk out instead of continuing to fight. And now they're ready for the World Tag Title match. Brian, your thoughts?
Is there a difference between they fought off and they fought out?
No, they fought out and fought off would technically mean the same thing, but the word fight is too strenuous a word for what they were doing here. They fought.
I mean, there's so much to say about this. The stomps from Wheeler Yuta when he was heel again, after Orange Cassidy foolishly ran in there, however many people on one, to save Wheeler.
Brian, he was always a heel. It's called bait.
Wheeler Yuta. That was something. Maybe I'm alone on this, but I don't care how safe it is. If your company has a partnership with Dr. Martha Hart, I'm not doing anyone dropping from the ceiling.
Brian, they talked with her about it. They checked in with her, and they've talked with her several times about this. She's okay with it. I appreciate your virtue signaling, though. I mean, it's no way you don't know that. You're so plugged into the professional wrestling space. You have multiple professional wrestling podcasts. You talk about wrestling. I don't know, for a living. I don't know if you do. I don't know if you have another job or whatever. But you know this. Come on, bud.
And you know, one of the reasons it worked so well for Sting in the loosey-goosey 90s was because he was able to unhook himself and get to the action. Maybe he shouldn't have. Maybe it should have been a technician to help him with that. And if that's what Darby has to do, then he shouldn't be dropping from the ceiling if he needs to be in a brawl.
Exactly.
And then the whole Moxley thing, nothing is explained. Still, nothing's explained. They're with Moxley, his gang, because he built AEW with his own hands. And he doesn't like what it's become while he's been there the entire time. And if you think this is bad now, wait until the Bucks return with Kenny to be the heroes to stop Moxley.
Oh, well, but now, wait a minute. They must have scratched that because according to what I just saw just coming up here shortly in this program, they're going in the opposite direction.
Well, as you said, the Moxley-Darby angle ended, but the next match began instantly as all of this was wrapping up.
Well, yes, because you can't grieve forever. But now it was 9 o'clock. Time to get the party started. Private Party versus the Hardley Boys for the World Tag Team title. And we'll talk about the ratings shortly, but boy, they give these guys every week they give them some important quarter that they can fuck up. And I mean, this match, again, you can't seriously critique it as a wrestling match. The cartwheeling and cheerleading began in earnest immediately. They've got their...
Wild. I guess Jim can't classify any Lucha Libre match. Here's the thing, Jim. The stuff that you all were doing with the Rock and Roll Express in the 1980s was the cartwheely stuff of that time. The fact that you are not able to understand that shows that you really don't have a good understanding of how art progresses. If you don't understand how art progresses, maybe you shouldn't be an art commentator anymore. Just saying.
Handpicked referee, the desiccated corpse himself, Rick Knox. So there's going to be no tags. There's going to be no sense of logic or order or credibility. They managed to work a spot where the baby faces look like complete idiots, where one of the heels ducked and one of Private Party hit his own partner with the ring bell. And that was the way that the guy got color. And of course,
Are you complaining about the spot where like a teammate accidentally hits the other one? That's a wrestling trope. Like we see it all the time.
it looked like he tried to pop a pimple. That's how much blood he had. But still, so the baby faces are busting each other open now. Then they drug one member of Private Party to the stage and left him there so that O'Cody could come out and give him what may be the fakest tombstone piledriver I've ever seen on the stage. Would you call that a tombstone piledriver, Brian, or would you call it picking somebody up and gently bending to your knees to let them down?
Yeah, Okada just kind of went down. He got less air than Gino Moore doing a big splash. He just didn't even leave the ground. He just went right down very gingerly.
Yes.
To Tombstone Piledriver, the babyface, to make sure he can... I mean, the Tombstone Piledriver on the entrance stage did nothing to stop the babyface. But anyway.
Well, no, because he was up and back in the ring a couple minutes later. But the point is, we're not saying break the guy's neck. We're saying if you can't do something that looks good and professional, then just don't fucking do it. And this guy can't do anything that looks good or professional. So then...
Okada? Okada. Okada can't do anything that looks good or professional? What are you talking about? You out of touch dinosaur. Okada's probably one of the better wrestlers currently wrestling. And to say like he can't do anything, like the guy was the John Cena of Japan for like 10 years. I understand that these guys have a very American-centric idea of what professional wrestling is and should be. But the fact is, there are more people on this planet than just Americans. There's more than one way to wrestle than just, I don't know, whatever style you want to call the American style. The fact that we're seeing other people, other talent, and other styles come into professional wrestling is a good thing. That's how you continue to evolve the art form. So Jim's sitting here and complaining about flips when he was his guys were the flippy guys back in the day. When he complains about people doing safe moves. Okay, you want to be upset with the way it looks? That's fine. It's a tombstone pile driver. Didn't work. It didn't look good. I don't remember it. I don't remember it as egregious, but Jim does. That's fine. You want to be mad about it? Cool. Everybody has a bad move, a bad match, a botch. It happens. The fact that you said that Okada can't do anything that looks good is disqualifying. Like, you're just an idiot.
And then he just left. O'Cody just left again. And they beat up the other Private Party fellow forever. 2-on-1 for minutes at a time in front of the most useless referee in the history of wrestling.
What
And
used to
then
be babyface?
the party came back that had been tombstone pile drived. And they had a continuous four-way until they hit a double team move on Little Nicky, the younger brother, and covered him 1, 2, 3.
Big pop. Fans happy.
Big yeah, well, the fans loved the idea of the Buckaroos not being the champions anymore.
Or and hear me out, they might have been fans of AEW, and fans of AEW have seen Private Party a long time. They've been a tag team. Now, granted, they have not been used a ton. Maybe, just maybe, AEW told a well enough story that the fans were excited to see the reaction. But no, we're always just saying, it's not because the storyline was over. It's not because the people in the building like it. It's not because the target demographic likes the stuff they're doing. It's because the Bucks lose. Like, they try to, what's the word here? They make the good, like anything that's bad is specifically done. AEW did something bad. But whenever something good happens and people like it and react, they say it's because AEW did it to spite themselves, essentially. And I just don't get that.
And then as the people popped
he hit
Private Party's got the belts.
He hit Cody earlier.
Away, and then they look at each other, and then they handed them back to him and patted him on the shoulder and left.
See, babyface turn.
There you go.
And then they're about to run out of the goddamn building with their tails between their legs like cowards. But in the meantime, this match would have gotten everybody involved in it expelled from wrestling school. And it took 20 minutes. The right result, but boy, it was brutal to get there.
Expelled from wrestling school. That's so funny, actually. Like, in my mind, there is like the superintendent of the wrestling school, like of all the wrestling schools, and there's like a principal of the wrestling school. Do you have a wrestling school like permanent record? Can you go to wrestling school detention? I don't know. I'm enthralled by that thought just for a moment. Like, Private Party into my office now. What you and the Young Bucks did out there were unforgivable, and you've been expelled from wrestling school.
I mean, the right result, we'll see what Private Party has to work with going forward. But definitely need some kind of change in that tag team division, and you definitely need the Bucks. I mean, how many times have the Bucks had to go away at this point? And they have to do it again?
See, they go away well. The part that they can't master is the coming back.
Is the groan from the audience when the opening notes of their music hits again in a couple months. Yeah, that's what they can't avoid.
Well, but we're going to get to that.
Look, I've been to a few AEW shows. When the Bucks music hits in the arena, there's not groans. People are excited to see the Bucks live. People like the Bucks. I understand that you don't, but to like actively say that something is happening when it's not, when you have eyes and ears, kind of ridiculous.
We need to keep chronologically.
I'm also glad the Bucks are going away for a little bit.
We're going to get to their exit from the building in a minute, but then there was the segment that I don't know why they didn't do this in the back, because they had these three dimwits just come out and stand there in front of the people with their backs to the people. But Jericho, Big Bill, and Brian Keith did a promo in the fashion they've been doing it, and at the top of it, I jotted down real quick, how did he convince anybody to let him do this bullshit on television? I'm just talking about the overall gimmick. I'm talking about the tone in his voice that he never had before, and the fact that he's dragging Big Bill down with him. And I mean, Brian Keith's lucky to be there. Everybody obviously see that. But just without even talking about the content, the delivery, the goofy delivery. This hasn't gotten any heat per se. This hasn't increased ratings. This hasn't increased buy rates. This hasn't increased ticket sales. This hasn't increased interest.
No, Jim, but it's an attempt to try to put ROH a little more on television. You know, with your 10-year, you didn't really get ROH into anything massive. You had a good opportunity. The United States has always had a great third option, and that's when wrestling has been the best, is when wrestling has had a third option to watch. For the longest time, WWE and TNA were your top two. ROH was your third option. You had the ability to do something different with it and make ROH good. You decided to make it the wrestling that you liked, which is not the wrestling most of America likes, and I can say that pretty confidently, as no one is knocking on your door to have you produce more wrestling. That's why you have two podcasts.
It's Jericho doing another thing that Jericho does to just annoy people and stay on television. Am I mischaracterizing the cheesiness of this whole persona that he's adopted?
Well, again, let's take everyone a step back. Jericho started getting an incredibly negative reaction from AEW fans, starting, I think, in New York when it came out that he went after Stephen P. New and said, I never signed an NDA. And then it was brought up that how many people have signed NDAs because of him. And then that kind of shut Jericho up. But the fans remembered it, and he started getting booed. He started getting the please retire chants. And, of course, it's moments like that that lead to reinvention. And, more importantly, ways to convince Tony Khan that you can reinvent yourself with your bad ideas. And the problem with Chris Jericho is there's never someone to put him in check and say, no, Chris, this is all really bad. You're not good at this. You're not an ideas guy. You're a bad ideas guy, but you're not an ideas guy. And that leads us to...
Well, I can get it. I can get the dislike for Chris Jericho. That's fine. No issue there. No issue there. But I do think that, and they want to talk about ratings, Chris Jericho does do ratings. And I know, I'm not a big ratings guy. I think that it's not 1997 anymore, and Nielsen is not the end-all, be-all. But having said that, if you want to compare and contrast, it does seem like Jericho does have some name value, some name recognition, some people who might stop flipping through the channels and be like, oh, I know this guy. What's up with him? And I think that's going to be very beneficial for ROH. I know that there has been news that ROH might be getting a television deal soon. Hey, cool, dude. I hope they do. I don't watch ROH right now. I don't have Honor Club. I don't have any intention of getting Honor Club. But if they threw it on HBO Max, I'd probably throw it on from time to time. And I hope ultimately that's what they do. Now, having said that, you're going to need somebody to be the face of ROH. And who better than a legend in professional wrestling? I think Chris Jericho can still wrestle. We've seen him wrestle. He's fair, fine. I mean, I don't need any more 20-minute Chris Jericho bangers for the rest of time. I don't. We got him. You know what? I think his best work might be behind him. But the fact is, if you had a small third brand and you could put someone who has the resume of Chris Jericho on it, that would be something good. First question, but if Chris Jericho is the champ and is not even on their show, the champ does still help. I think if ROH gets a television show, you're going to see a lot of the ROH talent and belts migrate back to ROH and not so much on AEW. Now, that might not happen right away. And the reason I say that it might not happen right away is because you want to have more eyes on the product. So you're going to put it on. Think of it as like an advertisement for ROH. Hey, Chris Jericho is going to be on ROH. He has the title. That's why we're showing it on WWE television. Now, I don't think he's going to be like, I think he's going to be there for a while and he's going to be the heel force on ROH, this is what I would do, right? This is what I would do. I don't know if it's exactly what Tony Khan and them are going to do, but I would have him be the heel force on ROH, and I would use Chris Jericho to build up the new stars of the future, which I would use ROH, like WWE, NXT, as a staging ground for our next big things. So you could tell that story and get a rub on a new babyface and say, look, he was able to defeat the 9-time world champion Chris Jericho. And I think you could do that. And I think that guy should be Lee Moriarty, but I digress.
This point where quite frankly, a play on what we make fun of here on the show. The thanks guys led to hi guys. I mean, it's really just a big, he's blowing a kiss to us with this whole thing.
He's not.
He's blowing.
No, he is. I'm saying Chris Jericho's chronically online.
Unfortunately, it seemed like with this promo, maybe it's gotten to him a little bit.
Well, and here's the thing, and I know Uncle Dave, because he mentioned, Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter gave my ladder match with Mark Briscoe 4 stars. And then in this...
I don't know if people understand this, but Chris Jericho's character of the last few years has been he is chronically online. Chris Jericho's character is that he is Chris Jericho and he spends all the time on the internet and sees what people says about him. And he takes those criticism and he makes them into characters. That's what he's doing. It's the same thing the Bucks kind of do to an extent. The Bucks are very self-referential. Chris Jericho is a chronically online wrestling fan. He is. That's why he's doing all this stuff. When people were like, Chris Jericho's just leeching off this new talent and making it, he's stealing the shine from all these guys. So much so that like Chris Jericho is so self-aware that he trademarked the Jericho Vortex. He understands. He knows what he's doing. These are to try to get heel heat in a new time and era in professional wrestling. You can't go out and just call the crowd stupid anymore, Jim. You can't. What you got? You used to get what you said earlier in the episode. You got sued because you told Mississippi people that that's the saddest bunch of people they ever saw. Okay, that shit doesn't get over anymore, dog. This is an attempt to. So I appreciate it.
Week's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Uncle Dave says that
you're right. Classic, you're right in the chat saying that's not heel heat, that's troll heat. I agree. And I agree, but what is more in this day and age? What gets hated more than people for trolling for the sake of trolling? Like, this is the same thing Jim does. Jim is trolling for the sake of trolling to get reactions from people like myself on this content. Okay? I get that. But and you think about like that is just ridiculous. That's a poor way to live life, to go through and just be like, I should just say things for the sake of saying things to get people to react to them. That's not a good person. That is a modern day asshole. And I think that's what Jim's trying to fill here. I think
Jericho then cut a promo about
the only difference is Chris Jericho's doing it on television as a character, and I think Jim Cornette is doing it on the internet. I think he's still being a character. I think if I sat down with Jim and said, like, kind of casually explain this back to him, like, this is what they're doing, right? And he might hem and haw and say, oh, well, I don't. But ultimately, I think because Jim's co-host here, Brian, does not push back on hardly anything. Like I said, glad-handing idiot yes men, to paraphrase CM Punk. That's why there's not a lot of thought here. It's basically like I'm going to use a Jim Cornette reference so he can understand. It's like Johnny Carson and whoever the hell the old guy was with Johnny Carson. You just say, "Ha ha, you're right, sir. Good stuff." Like that's all you have here. That's why this is not a thinking podcast. This is a entertainment show.
Directly to the naysayers, to the people who have criticized AEW and criticized him and said they wouldn't get this TV deal or that because Jericho's out there saying, if you underestimated Chris Jericho, then you don't know how wrestling or television works. And so Dave has taken that as Jericho is out there defending AEW and what they've done and what he's done and now Ring of Honor and blah, 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 because they're trying to shop around or already have shopped around and believe they may have found a buyer for a Ring of Honor TV show with True TV, right? Which is one of the minions in the W.
I hadn't heard that yet. True TV would be cool. I would like that. I think if ROH got a television deal, I think that would be awesome for them.
BD, Canon, Arsenal, whatever.
Yeah, Jericho's acting like he's still a demo god or that he really helps the show or the ratings or anything. No, this is exactly where we thought he would end up, on True TV with 300,000 viewers.
Well, yes, that's the thing. While Uncle Dave is saying that Jericho is cutting a promo, sniping at all the naysayers who have criticized AEW, no, he's cutting a promo basically saying, you underestimated me being able to sucker this fucking billionaire into giving me my own show where I can be the world champion. I could be all over the fucking thing. And I don't have to interact with these fuckers over here anymore.
With all the people that don't want to work with him anymore. That's the other thing. It's not like the comments we had about Chris Jericho and his work over the last several years weren't heard by the locker room. He was able to sucker some guys in, that he was helping them, that he had advice for them.
I just want to apply a little logic here. If I'm in the back like Brian Keith and I'm not being used on television except for some job matches occasionally, or I'm just on ROH television, I'm going to join when Chris Jericho comes and says, hey, I got a spot for you. Do you want some television time? Yes. Yes, I do. I do want television time. I'll take that. Thank you.
Who has come out for the better for that? No one. MJF had to get as far away from all that as he could. And now he's going to have a show because who's going to work with him amongst the top people in AEW right now?
Well,
the Moxley group? No.
But here's the thing also, what they're saying is that, well, it was more important for Ring of Honor to have a name like Jericho as the world champion instead of Mark Briscoe or any of the other guys because of his name value. Well, yes, name value is important, and we've talked about it. And 5 years ago, when Jericho was the only name there, he was pretty important at the start of the program. But now that we've seen him for 5 years, and he's 5 years older, and the whole idea of Ring of Honor is not to have a mid-50s champion that does bad fucking promos as a gimmick. And if you wanted a name...
Here's the thing. I don't think Jim understands the concept of what is going on in the current wrestling world right now. And I say that because ROH, if you're watching ROH weekly, congratulations, you are a big wrestling nerd. Just fine. If I had the time, I would watch it too. I just don't. I don't want to pay for Honor Club. The target demographic that is watching ROH television understands that Chris Jericho is doing this and is in on the character. They're not confused by it, Jim.
If you were just going to say, fuck the style of Ring of Honor or the idea that Ring of Honor is for the younger talent, it's kind of like the cool underground record label vibe or whatever, then you've just signed Bobby Lashley. Why wouldn't you make Bobby Lashley the world champion of Ring of Honor if you wanted a name off of the other television to be strong, etc.? No, Jericho went to his, Tony, I'll get this thing over for you. So he's got his own show, his own bunch of stooges, his own world title, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants over there. Anyway.
Again, it all comes back to the same thing. Jericho found the biggest Jericho fan and has gotten away with murder for millions of dollars for several years now.
Chris Jericho is
on this podcast, we're upset about wrestlers making money.
Possibly the most successful hitman in history. He's been paid millions of dollars to kill a bunch of towns. Go ahead.
And the other thing is, he hurts everyone who gets involved. But Big Bill is actually one of the few exceptions so far. But, you got to think Big Bill's just trying to get back to WWE. But with Ring of Honor, they have such a difficult time promoting and marketing AEW. So if this gets picked up on True TV, let's say, another Warner Brothers Discovery Channel, or anywhere else, that means you would think they're going to start promoting, with Jericho as the world champion, they're going to start promoting the brand a whole lot more. That's going to create a little bit of confusion in the marketplace, isn't it? Jericho's the world champion. He's the world champion of AEW. No, that's a different world champion. Are they going to rebrand Ring of Honor AEW Ring of Honor? Like, how's it going to work?
That's the dumbest argument. When you have the NXT champion show up, like, I don't know, when Kevin Owens showed up to wrestle John Cena for the open, like the United States open challenge, people were not confused that he was the champion of a different promotion, of a different brand. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Work. Or is it going to be like TNA to WWE, or I guess that's not. Is it going to be like NXT to Ring of Honor? We don't know.
It's very confusing is what it's going to be, and they can't focus on anything to begin with, and they're going to have more stuff to talk about. So I just can't wait.
But Tony thinks these guys are his friends. That's the funniest thing.
They're his highly prized, highly priced, and highly paid friends. And speaking of some of the highest ones, they go to the back where Garcia snatches old Jungle Jack, throws him up against the wall, and his custody, you can do something about this, and blah, blah, blah. And then Jungle Jack goes into the Buckaroos locker room, and they are packing their shit and putting papers in the shredder and say, we got to go. We got to get out of here. We're leaving. And again, they can't do anything that's not funny and not.
I like the shredding of everything. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, what are they actually getting rid of? Like that adds a wrinkle to the story. Is like very much like the like Enron, and I like that. I think it gives like it gives me something that I look at. I'm like, oh, what are we doing here? Interested in this, but apparently they didn't like it.
Believable too. They can't do anything to get something
James,
over
I'm trying to pull
serious.
that
That's
link.
why they're in the position they're in. Because they think that people were just going to
And I'm going to just say this.
enjoy
Part
for
of that-
10 years them playing with themselves. And it got old. But they're shredding the papers and they're looking like they're bailing out before the goddamn feds come to file a search warrant or whatever. And we get out of that. And more on that in a minute. Or should we do more on it now? Let's keep it together.
Let's keep it
My
together.
God. Well, I wish I could keep it together. So they have the next match, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then they go to the back again, and now the Buckaroos are bailing from the building. They're running to the parking lot like somebody's chasing them. And Chris Daniels tries to stop them and go, no, we need you. We need you. Don't leave. And one of the little Buckaroos is like, well, this place is too chaotic. And we told you, but nobody would listen to us. And now I'm going to be working from home. And Daniels again, we need you. But they drive off. But they've left Brandon Cutlet, who was coming with their box of shit and he had shredded stuff. And suddenly, as he's there, standing there like, don't
Box
leave
of sneakers. No, you say box of shit. It was all
Was that
sneakers.
what it was? Sneakers and
Just
shit. Yeah,
tons and
whatever.
tons of sneakers. Yeah.
Children. That's the most important thing to them.
All right, I'm looking at this here. This is what James sent earlier, saying ROH failed to create new stars on Cornette's watch, which is the biggest problem the company faces. Guys like Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Tommaso Ciampa, Mike Bennett, most of all Michael Elgin, have star potential on this level. None of them have truly advanced above the mid card. It's hard to give Cornette any credit for Steen, whose long-term storyline and push began 2 bookers ago. Let's see. Did he? Yeah, I mean, I agree. When you look at that time, like a lot of those guys ended up being successful in spite of Cornette. I don't think he has created any new stars when he was in ROH. But you know, Jim's got feelings about ROH.
I remember when I found other things to play with, I didn't worry about my tennis shoes when I was a kid. Anyway, Moxley and his band of merry misfits appear, and
Death Riders.
they slap the box of sneakers down, and now
I
Daniel
prefer
says,
moccasins.
hold on. God damn it.
Thank you.
Moccasins.
Try the veal.
God, dude, this guy.
So, Chris Daniels, an ex-pro wrestler, a member of management who, a while back, Tony Khan made his spokesman, right? Before they forgot about all that.
Well, he was made the spokesman after the Bucks and Jack Perry beat up Tony Khan.
Yes. Well, now Moxley just put his arm around Daniels and held him immobile like a small child, not exhibiting much effort to do it. And there was Daniels going, no, because Moxley's hand is over his mouth. And while he's holding Daniels, Marina Schaefer puts, what the fuck? What's his name? Cutlet. Brandon Cutlet's hand on a forklift, and Claudio has a ball peen hammer. And Claudio picks the hammer up and hits the forklift beside the guy's hand. And the guy didn't sell it right away because it missed and he didn't realize. And then instead of jerking his hand back or even an instantaneous, oh shit. Like when you drop something on your toe, oh shit. He went, "Ah." And then she had a chain around his wrist. She untied the little chain, and he was selling his hand that, again, it missed by 6 inches.
Did you want him to actually get hit with the hammer? Like, are your brain broken, Jim?
And visible that it did. I mean, it's not like it missed and you had to go back and check. You went back and checked, like, yeah, I think I just saw what I saw.
Yeah, well, and then also because the guy didn't know when to sell it because it never touched him.
They got that working hammer.
Audio's not good with tools. It's better with books. I saw Casino this weekend, so I did the hammer scene.
I've heard the saying, a poor worker blames his tools, but I've never...
Now you're going to have to carry shoes with your left hand.
I mean, what in the world? Again, like, who gives a shit about...
Yeah, I'm with you, James. When I saw it at the beginning, when I saw it live, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm not going back and pixel peeping whether or not they actually hit a man with a hammer. If they actually hit a man with a hammer intentionally, then stop watching the show. I'd be like, it's not for me. Like, why do you actually have to do that? This is a television show. Don't actually break someone's hand with a hammer. What are you talking about?
The stooge of the EVPs that are heels and nobody gives a shit about them to begin with. And now we're going to... So in 2 weeks in a row, they've beaten up Chuck fucking Taylor. And now they had to go a ways, but they found the only person less important to the company or to the fans than Chuck Taylor, and they beat him up.
Well, again, too, they're the big heels in the tag team division, so big that the fans just don't want to watch when they're on TV. And they respectfully handed over the belts after losing. Babyface move. However, then we were told by commentary, by Excalibur, that they were shredding documents in the back.
No, we saw it. We saw it when they opened the door.
You know what? I didn't see it when they opened the door. I saw the sneakers and Cutler. I never saw the documents, but we were told over and over.
No, Cutler was feeding them in the fucking shredder. Well, in the first couple seconds of the scene.
So then they're shredding documents. That seems like a heel move.
And then running.
And then they flee. That's a heel move. But now their friend has been attacked with a hammer. A hammer that's so strong. It's like Thor's hammer. You don't even have to hit the body part. You have to be near it. You hit the pole next to it and the vibrations cause the injury. You got to figure they're going to come back and save their stooge. That's a babyface move.
Here's the thing. Even if they do come back to save their friends, so now they've established that those are the pussies that ran off when they... or were afraid of these guys, but their friend gets hurt, so now they're coming back to try to do something. Should I support them? Because...
Yeah, the Bucks ran off because they were scared. They're chicken shit heels. Like, that's the point of the Bucks entirely. They are evil middle managers who use the system to their advantage when it's advantageous for them and their friends. And then when things get going to be tough, they leave. What are we not understanding? I mean that, Jim. You have more years working in the professional wrestling space than I have years on this earth. And the fact that you're asking these questions that are, I mean, they are coworker ass takes. They're like, it's like someone who's never watched wrestling and tries to apply the logic of the real world to a television show.
They didn't want to help the company. They didn't want to help the fans. They just, whenever their friend got hurt, then they came back from running.
Yes, they just want to help.
Otherwise, they were content to be pussies up to that point. How does that gain support for a babyface?
By the way, Christopher Daniels, I said it from the beginning, he's like a bootleg Adam Pierce. Adam Pierce has never been made to look as weak as Christopher Daniels has since almost the very beginning. And what's the point of him in that role?
Well, and again, to just hold him. Just like, here, little fellow, just stay there. So anyway, that was that. You want to go back to the match we skipped?
He's so close to getting it. You're right, James. He is so close to understanding. Well, why would they do that? if they're trying to be baby faces, it's because they're heels, Jim. Because they're the bad guys. You're not supposed to be cheering for them. And that's the thing. I think that these guys, these older cats in wrestling, have this mindset that everyone, if they're interacting, has to have one heel, one babyface, and that's it. And if you don't have one heel and one babyface, the story doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, but like the times have changed. The shades of gray in the character work is good because no man is ever truly good. No man is ever truly evil. Shout out Malachi Black's theme song, as I do quite a bit. The fact that you're sitting here and you're saying like, I don't get it. How is that supposed to make them babyfaces? They're not, Jim. They've been heels. Earlier, you complained about the heels shaking hands with the babyfaces in a different match while they were actively trying to do a babyface turn. Like, what are you really mad at here, Jim? Are you mad that AEW didn't give you a call? They don't bring you in for work because it feels like that. The fact that you're just complaining about things that you know about, and if you were backstage talking about these things, you wouldn't have these feelings at all. It's just based off the fact that this isn't the wrestling that you would book.
The match that we are speaking of that we had skipped earlier was Camille versus Chris Statlander. And again, I thought, well,
I'm interested to see what Jim says about this because when I went to do that extra work on the movie Tony Storm was in. It's the one about oh, God bless. What's her name? Queen of the Ring. This is the name of the movie. Anyways, Camille plays June Byers. Jim Cornette plays the NWA president, which Jim Cornette was probably very excited to finally be the NWA president, even if it wasn't a movie. But he watched Camille wrestle for like a bunch of hours. He wasn't on set the entire time. I did see him a lot. But having said that, I watched Camille wrestle as June Byers for a combined 26 and a half hours over 2 days. She's good. Like, I'm interested to see what he has to say about her, though.
Well, here's a chance we can evaluate Camille, and there wasn't anything about her with the match, but boy, howdy did the booking get in the way. First of all, remember,
booking?
Well, yeah, it was like they kind of just made it up as they went along, but
what booking? Well, Chris Statlander's babyface. That happened kind of abruptly. That's what you're complaining about. Okay, I get it. But Camille is the heater for Mercedes Moné. If you're unfamiliar with the heater concept, Jim, just think of Diesel as the heater for Shawn Michaels. That's precisely what it is. He's so lost, he spirals. He does. He's as much as he like complains about Donald Trump and hates him, which cool, good for you, Jim. He does the weave. Jim does the weave just like Trump does. Like he just kind of like he's like, I'll get back to like shitting on people, but I'm gonna go on a tangent about the Bee Gees or some wrestler from 1927.
The booking, if you can call it that, of this thing is completely. Again, they've Wardlowed Camille already. I'll not get ahead of myself. The point is, Statlander was from Alpha Centauri.
No.
Or Andromeda.
The Andromeda Galaxy. That's
yes.
Right, in Suffolk County.
And then she actually became a real person.
Wasn't the Ultimate Warrior, like there's multiple wrestlers who've been parts unknown. The farthest reaches of your mind. Like we've always had fun little areas they've been from. Let's stop acting like we don't.
After she had a couple of injuries, as I recall, and of late, when we've had a chance to see her, she had kind of the jeans thing going on. She had a youngish type of look. She was a baby face. She's got good size. She can do shit. We're like, why don't they do something with her instead of this fucking Mercedes Moon? And now she came out and she looks like she moved back to outer space. And the gimmick is, it's a complete departure. And all these people show up. There used to be a rule in the WWF, you couldn't get a fucking tattoo without office approval. You couldn't.
Good. I'm glad they stopped doing that, Jim. I'm glad they stopped saying you can't live your life and you can't get a tattoo. Like, think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. You couldn't get a tattoo if your job said you couldn't get a tattoo.
Get a new set of tights made that was radically different from anything you've been wearing without approval, because all your publicity, your pictures, the way you're being written for, your gimmick. You don't just get to, oh, fuck it, I'm going to be a ballet dancer this week. But now she's back to tights. She's got face paint on. It looked outlawed. It looked like she's trying to be from outer space again. Suddenly. For no reason. No explanation. So they had a match. They were serious. They were fairly stiff. It was a big girl match. Who's the most powerful? Camille hit a great leg lariat. You know, the old David Schultz thing. She jumped up, stuck her leg out, and sat on the fucking guy. Or on the girl, I should say. Well, Schultz usually did it to a guy. Nevertheless. And then they went back and
if not another wrestler, at least a reporter.
Forth a little bit. And then Camille went for a tombstone, and Statlander reversed it and tombstoned her. 1, 2, 3. They beat Camille.
Yep.
I was like, what the fuck? And Shivani's like, oh my God, this is a big upset. Camille was 5-0. Big fucking deal. She just got there. They beat her already? It's...
Well, you had to know they...
Dude, she's a heater, Jim. She's not the undefeatable champion. She's a heater for a chicken shit heel champion. That's how this works. Usually you don't, you have to beat up the heater and then you can go wrestle the champ. This is not new stuff. We've been doing this since, I don't know, probably 1977.
They were going to beat her when they were using her as a setup for the Mercedes Moné match for Statlander.
That's the exact problem. Is Mercedes is attached to this, and the only way, I think it's safe to say you can't disagree that for the money that they have paid, especially if what we are told is even remotely true, that Mercedes Moon has been the biggest bomb in the biggest turkey, as Jackie Gleason would say, we laid an egg with that one, that there's ever been. But now they bring Camille in. They could have gotten heat on Mercedes with Camille. If Camille is established as the Diesel, the bodyguard, or Big Bubba, instead of Big Bubba Rogers, she's Big Bubba Gump.
Dude, he literally is explaining. Like, he's like, I don't get why they did this. And then perfectly explains why they're doing it.
Is she? It's already over. Camille.
But she's got great shrimp.
Well, yeah, and you know what? She's standing next to the shrimp. Mercedes. But Camille could have won this with Mercedes reaching in and goddamn doing something and interfering, and Camille gets a win. But the heat still goes to Mercedes and Statlander, but nobody wants to see Mercedes do any fucking thing or wrestle anybody. But if they were going to try to put some heat on her, then Camille could have propped her up. But now they're beating, and then she beats Camille to Statlander, and then Mercedes knocks Statlander out from behind with one shot with a belt. She's going to lay there for the next 2 minutes. Mercedes gets the microphone and yells at Camille, get to the back now! Like a whipped puppy. And then Mercedes says, if you want something done right, do it yourself. She's already burying the bodyguard. And then to do something herself, she pulled Statlander's head up, showed her the belt, and then...
the things that Jim just complained about, right? He complained about a belt shot to the back of the head and then her selling it for 2 minutes. She got hit in the back of the head with the belt. That's how that happens, bud. Like, if she got up immediately, you would have said she no-sold it. There's no winning for losing for you, bud. It's... he also complains about the heel being mad at her bodyguard not doing exactly what she asked for. Mercedes Moné is the bad guy here. And you're supposed to, that's supposed to help get the heat back on Mercedes. She's mad at her bodyguard. And well, Camille tried her best. She wrestled a good match. It's the emotions you're supposed to leave with that. Because eventually, Camille is going to stand up to Mercedes Moné. That's what we call planting seeds, Jim. You know that. You definitely know that.
And dropped it. And then the music played and she stood there doing nothing.
Posing.
Which is what she's good at. But again, Camille 5-0. Well, goddamn, until she was 25 or 30-0, then they shouldn't have a goddamn match with her and somebody they don't want her to beat. Do you have any idea how many 0 guys and girls used to be in the...
James in the chat saying, I don't think Jim should ever book again, but he's saying, oh, he's making me stick up for Mercedes. That's really funny.
Wrestling business when they brought him in and put him on television to get him over?
No, and again, they're doing some of the things now that you would see maybe with like a Shawn and Diesel after a couple of years. They've been together for weeks.
Yes.
And they're already doing all these things. Diesel didn't lose for a long time. Diesel wasn't just losing matches to set up people for Shawn right away.
Or China.
So it's ridiculous that, I mean, they took all whatever Camille was supposed to bring, they kind of took all of that away because of the way they've booked her. So now she's just a big girl standing there at Mercedes. She's not a threat. She can lose matches. And yes. Statlander was as big as she was.
And Mercedes...
After Queen Aminata, it's 2 weeks in a row they put Camille in there with women that were as big, if not taller than her.
And also, Mercedes is not even particularly confident in her now, telling her off. So, and remember I said then the job girls have been pushing her around. So, that was a chance to make something out of Mercedes, because if she wasn't coming off as such an entitled bitch that actually believes she's over, I would feel embarrassed for her at how over she's not.
Dude, Jim's getting worked. He's getting worked. Listen to him. Listen to the way he talks about her. He's real mad about her. He's using that language because he's actually upset. And he thinks that she's the character she portrays on television. Jim, you're getting worked.
But, my God, and she's got nothing but problems, Mercedes. For all that money she got paid from Tony, did you hear about her financial issues?
I don't have any idea what you're talking about, no.
She overdrew her account at the sperm bank.
Gross.
Anyway, so...
Exactly, no pop. Not even from your idiot yes man. You didn't get a pop for that one, Jim, because you're gross. You're a gross man.
We're going to move on now.
That's a good idea.
So
it's a really good idea. Let's move on from the sperm bank. What's next on the show, Jim?
Well, boy, I'll tell you what, some testosterone, thankfully. We got the main event with Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana against Shelton Benjamin with MVP. And this was not only one of the better Swerve matches I've seen, but the only thing actually worth watching on this television program. And again, except I'm not happy about the timing of the booking with what they did with the finish here. And they do actual rotten finishes, not in terms of who's winning or losing, but how it happens. But it appears for most of this that once again, Shelton and MVP are agenting, producing their own stuff here, because this was a wrestling match followed by a wrestling angle, which is out of...
Once again, he's saying that because something was good, it was not because of anybody else. It was not AEW's doing, it was somebody else's doing. I don't know if Jim thinks like the guys are solely writing their own stuff, but I don't think Jim's ever been in a locker room where someone was writing their own angles, like word for word. AEW has writers, Jim. That's what they're doing. I don't think RJ is not the writer on this. The report that came out was Will Washington is the guy.
A place on this show, and it was perpetrated by grown adult men. And Swerve, as I predicted, was kept away from his worst instincts and his leaping and athletics and etc. didn't get too fancy for the sake of being cute, but instead was a response to a more physical guy that was dominating him. So he had to use his speed and his inventiveness. And that's when this shit works. And I mean, again, Shelton, he out wrestles the guy, so Swerve has to be a little quicker. And Shelton gives him a belly to belly over the top rope to the floor, but Swerve gets an arm lock and scissors it around the ring post. And when Shelton opens up and starts manhandling Swerve, finally, he'll get hope spots, Swerve will, from underneath, but then he'll get suplexed on his ass again. And then 10 o'clock came. They were almost in break. They came back from the break right at 10 o'clock. Of course, they're going overtime. And again, I don't know why they're putting the best thing on the show at the end of the show where the fewest people will see it, but nevertheless, that's what they did.
Why are they putting the main event at the end of the show? Why are they putting the main event at the end of the show? Why are they putting their best thing at the end of the show? This guy's been hitting the head too much time. I don't know if Jim is a CTE guy, but he might have it.
When Swerve made his comeback, did you notice that he didn't have the people with his comeback? Do you know why?
Well, I actually thought they had a problem getting the people into the match, or at least getting them to make noise throughout the whole match, but why here?
Well, if anybody wants to go back and look at it, when Swerve finally opened up with his comeback, I mean, he hit a...
It is a bad joke, right? He's saying that people are not going to last till the main event. It's a bad joke. It's the main event. That's how you've always booked shows, Jim. You always put the big match on last. It's called retention. You promise the people at the end, we're going to have a good match. So hang out, watch the rest of the show. Because if you put the immediate, you're talking about like, why are you doing this? If you put the best thing on your show a minute in and it's the opening thing, and I'm like, okay, well, why am I going to watch anything else? I watched the best part of the show. It's only down from here. That's not how you pace a show. That's not how you do these things, Jim. And you understand that. You've written thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of wrestling television. If someone came to you and said, let's put the main event on first on the entire show, on all of our shows, let's put the main event first because we need people to be watching right off the start. You would throw that writer out of the writer's room.
Kind of a missile drop kick off the fucking top rope to the back of Shelton's head, and he did some other stuff. But what he does is not a good babyface comeback. It's a good series of moves to do in the match. But a babyface comeback needs momentum. It needs him to be cooking. It needs to kick it into high gear. This is where the heel becomes a ping pong ball and starts bumping. And everything that Swerve did, he was doing a fancy move, but it took a little bit to set it up. Like he's got to do something to Shelton where Shelton is sitting there, and then Swerve has to run to the buckle and then jump off and hit him with an elbow in the back of the head. But Swerve is taking the big bumps. Everything he did in the comeback either took a couple of seconds to set up or gave Shelton no bump to take. So, because the babyface was doing the pretty stuff. In the comeback, the ideal babyface comeback is he stands in the middle of the ring and the heel feeds him. And the heel bumps the fuck out of, off of him. And the momentum.
Jim, and I get it, bud. That stuff got over at the Tupelo Fairgrounds in 1986, right? Like hotcakes. And telling the crowd that they look sad used to get you heat. But like that's not what the business is anymore. And that's my ultimate problem with Jim is he wants everything to go back to 1986. And my feeling is that you can't do that. You can't do that with anything. The time of media, right? Whether it's movies, whether it's television show, they capture the feelings. They're a snapshot of what's going on in the world at that time. Anything else, bringing that style back because it was over in 1987, is going to be a pale imitation. What we still don't understand about media and about art, right, is it's very of the time. It's at that moment. There's very little things that stand the test of time. I know you have like your Rembrandts and your Michelangelo, stuff of that nature, and that does stand the test of time. That's very good stuff. But those aren't the only artists of their day. There's thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who have painted things and done things like this over time, or made movies, and we can't go back to those times. We can't. You need to embrace the here and the now. You need to embrace what's going on in the modern day, because if you're not, you're basically building something for nostalgia. And I'm sorry, nostalgia is cool, but nothing ever compares to the original nostalgia you felt. So making anything else is just going to be like I said, a pale imitation. It's going to feel lacking. It's not going to have the heart and soul of that time, because you can't capture the heart and soul of that time, because it's not that time anymore.
You know, I see guys when they'll make a tag and they'll punch a guy 2 or 3 times to back him up into the ropes, and they'll shoot him off, and the guy will reverse it and shoot the baby face off, and they'll duck and do bullshit. You're wasting fucking time. When a baby face gets a tag in a tag match or just starts a comeback because the heel has missed something, the people want to see him cook. They want to see him punch the guy in the face and him take a bump.
Dude, did Jim just say, like, let them cook? Oh my god, he's catching on with the lingo.
Bump. Punch him in the face, he takes another bump. Now back him up, shoot him off, hit him with a fucking drop kick. He takes another bump. Or give him a body slam.
Classic in the chat, you're right. It says, classic saying, but that's the difference. Jim thinks it as money and not art. So to him, you got to do this to make money. Sure. And I get that, right? And pro wrestling has changed. It used to be a live events business, right? Now it's a television show. Pro wrestling, how you make your money is television. That's why AEW is being paid $180 million a year to make television. They don't care about the live house. It's good. Hey, that's also money. Good, whatever, fine. But when you look at the critical path, and the critical path of a business, right, is how you make money. And keep in mind, Tony Khan is a billionaire in his own right. Maybe he's not interested in making more money. If you believe what Jack Swagger said, he's a communist. Not too many billionaire communists out there, but you know, that's the thing. When you're trying to conflate art and money, right? I understand art makes money, and the reason why they could be there is that specifically, like when we talk about WWE, they're there to make money. That's why they're a publicly traded company. Their whole goal on the planet is to drum up money for the shareholders. When you're a publicly traded company, that's what you do. It is what it is. Sometimes those align with the values of the audience, i.e., like event. I don't want to say i.e., right? What I want to say. Sometimes that lines up with what the audience wants to see, what makes money. Sometimes it doesn't. Think about the WrestleMania last year. You know what would have made the WWE a lot more money is if The Rock was wrestling Roman Reigns in the final, in the match by himself at WrestleMania. That probably would have made them more money. But the audience who watches week in and week out, who's been told this story about Cody Rhodes, eventually said, no, dude, you've been telling the story for 2 years. Now The Rock's just going to show up and take his spot. That's dumb. That's what I'm talking about. If we are as fans, we as professional wrestling fans view it as art. If you only care about the money-making aspect of professional wrestling as a fan, watch the business reports, watch the stock market. You're not watching it for the sake of the show. You're not watching it for the narratives being told. You're watching it to see how much money it makes. Then you don't need to watch it. You frankly do not need to watch Wrestling Weekly if you're more concerned about the business metrics, ratings, the amount of money that's being made. And I think that's, and I understand Jim worked in the business and you had to make money to survive back then. But we're not talking about needing to sell out a house so you could continue your product. This, nowadays, $180 million a year to make a television show is insane money. Is absolutely ludicrous money. I can't even fathom, right? That's where the money is making something that people will tune in and watch.
Takes no what it bump this motherfucker and do it ba-bing, 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 and then hit him with a big one. The guy can sell.
Caesar, you saying you love hearing Jim's commentary on the business, but Jim doesn't understand the business anymore. He doesn't understand the business aspect of pro wrestling anymore. It's passed him by, and it has passed a lot of fans by. He is talking about business metrics that flat do not matter. Why do they not matter? It's easy. When you go to your boss and you say at the end of the year, hey boss, I've done a really good job, I want a raise. And if they give you that raise, you probably have done a good enough job. When AEW went to go do the television rights negotiations for their new contract, and they say, we want more money, and they more than double the amount of money that they were receiving per year, I think we can extrapolate that they are doing a good job. Despite what Jim wants to say about the houses, what he wants to say about the ratings. Frankly, the people who have all the data points, Warner Brothers Discovery, who is also another publicly traded company, like we discussed earlier, they're only here to make money. That company has decided that one of the ways they can make more money is keep AEW around. And one of the ways they can still make, and they could still make that money, and also give them $100 million more a year. I don't know why we are so quick to ignore the facts that are in front of our face. Because, you know, if we want to talk about the business of professional wrestling, the only thing that matters is the money then, right? And the money is showing them doing well.
The babyface can fire up the people, and then you go into your false finishes. But this is inside the ring and outside the ring and this fancy thing, and there was no momentum and there wasn't a heel bumping. And then Swerve tried to get, at first I thought he was trying to get a full Nelson on and Shelton was fighting it. But then it looked like that he was trying to get some kind of abdominal stretch and couldn't figure it out. And then it just looked like that Shelton was looking behind him like, are you going to put a hold on me or what? And finally, none of these things transpired. Shelton double wrist locked him and took him down and had the double wrist lock, but then Shelton was on the bottom and Shelton had him float over and get a 2 count. And he had him float over. Shelton stuck his own leg in the middle of Swerve's legs and kicked it up a little bit, like, come over here, to get him to cover him. And then Shelton took over again. So I don't know whether Swerve was trying to put a hold on that.
I want to address something Caesar in the chat saying, by his metrics, Jinder Mahal is a bigger draw than Cody. Yeah, if we're talking about solely about the ratings, right? Jinder Mahal had higher television ratings than Cody Rhodes. And I don't think I got to spend a lot of time on this, but do you think that Cody Rhodes or do you think that Jinder Mahal was more entertaining? Pretty simple.
He didn't know what the fuck, but anyway. Thankfully, Shelton is an experienced professional. And then they went back and forth and they hit the big moves. And then suddenly, Swerve got a sit-down power bomb, did the double stomp off the top rope, cover, 1, 2, 3. Again, seriously. I know they're setting up what we're about to talk about, but not even a manager spot to give Shelton an out. What about if MVP had come up the goddamn bullshit over something and Nana fucking got on him and Shelton went over to fucking save his goddamn.
It's simple, Jim, because the story being told is Swerve Strickland. The story that we're building to, once again, is going to be Swerve Strickland versus Bobby Lashley. The same thing with Mercedes Moné. Sometimes, when you're in a feud against somebody with a faction or group, you have to wrestle the rest of them. Okay. Glad you got it.
Damn manager, boom, and nails Nana and then turns around and gets the fucking boot or whatever.
Yeah, it's about making Swerve.
But again, all they do is...
James, you're right. It's about making Swerve a star because you know who's going to be here in 5 to 10 years? Probably Swerve Strickland. And I'm not saying Shelton Benjamin doesn't deserve his flowers. Shelton Benjamin is a fantastic wrestler. I love Shelton Benjamin. But he is not the future of AEW. Shelton Benjamin is in his 40s, 50s maybe? Maybe he's in his mid-40s, I think. That's where the story is. The story is Swerve Strickland, your younger champion. Well, ex-champion.
Flat finishes. I'm sorry, at this point it was too soon to beat Shelton. He's just got there. But they're trying to set up the introduction that they're about to do. But you can still figure a finish to give the guy an out so that you've not damaged your one commodity to introduce your next commodity. And I've never seen so many people, baby faces and heels, just get beaten with no outs, no bitches, no gripes, no slip-ups, no...
Jim is complaining that there's not a lot of bad finishes. What are you talking about? Like, you're mad that they actually have, like, a finish to the match? Do you know what the biggest complaint, and this is maybe Jim not, understanding a complaint about his product. Do you know the biggest complaint that WWE had for years is there were no finishes matches? They were all DQs, there were run-ins, they were countouts, there were stuff like that. And people hated that stuff. And one of the people who hated that stuff seems to be Tony Khan. And guess what? He got enough money that he can run his own company and run it the way that he wants to. The fact that you want everything to be WWE is not good. Everything you don't need everything to be the same. That's why we have different music. That's why you have rap music, country music. We don't just have music, Jim.
Making a mistake or no capitalizing on a mistake. They just do moves until somebody wins with one. And that's a rotten way to do finishes. The fuck?
Especially to someone you just brought in.
Especially somebody you just brought in that's looked better than everybody else on the roster. So anyway, the point is 1, 2, 3, Swerve wins. And MVP gets on the phone at ringside. I'm not saying there's a payphone at ringside. I mean, he gets on his phone, but he's at ringside.
No one was thinking you meant payphones, Jim. Most of the people, well, I don't know, people listen to your stuff, but most of the people watching AEW barely remember payphones or used them.
And suddenly, as he's talking, the lights go out, and there's a big pop from the people. And then the lights come back on again. And come to find out it was an accident. And the fucking crowd went, wow! Pretty. And when the lights came back on again, that now everybody's standing around, and then suddenly music starts playing. Most of the lights go out again. Then the lights go out again, but there's still a light over the ring because it's Bobby Lashley. And the production crew got their fucking I's dotted and their T's crossed in the wrong fashion. But now here came Lashley, and he got a big pop. But I'm thinking, who did MVP call on the phone? Did he call the light guy or the sound guy? Think about that. How did he call? If it's one thing for Paul Heyman to call Roman Reigns on his cell phone when Roman...
In regards to what you chatted there, James, can't wait for better production in 2025. Yeah, they did buy a new production truck, but this is not production truck issues. This is like bad communication. That's what that is. Which has to be fixed via the people.
Ain't there to report on the shit that's going on, right? But did he call Bobby Lashley, who's standing at Gorilla, said, okay, MVP says it's time to play my music. No, turn the lights back on. The music first. What's going on back there?
Yeah, where was Lashley was he near a monitor? Because, he got out there pretty quickly, all things considered.
Well, yes. And that's what...
It's a TV show, guys. It's a TV show. It's a TV show. The TV show. If you keep applying logic like it's real life, you're going to be disappointed.
So anyway, if MVP had been for weeks calling somebody on the phone, all right, nevertheless, they have ideas and they just go, oh, let's do that.
He gave up on it. He realized how dumb it was.
But nevertheless, Lashley comes to the ring, gives MVP a big hug, has a face-off with Swerve. The people chant, holy shit. Remember, didn't somebody say... oh, they don't want Lashley. He's too WWE or whatever the fuck. They like any name that shows up.
No, they treated him like a star, those fans.
And And then when Shelton popped up on the apron of the ring and diverted Swerve's attention, MVP, Lashley clotheslined him and started kicking the shit out of Swerve. And finally, MVP stopped Prince Nana. He hit him with the cane and then put the cane around his neck and was choking him with it. Because remember, before they've just let Nana stand there with his dick in his hand, doing nothing. And MVP was too smart for that, so they held MVP down, and then Shelton gave him a super kick or whatever. And Lashley chokeslammed Swerve and put the hurt lock on him. And here comes the referees and the security, but the heels were doing the King of the Hill the right way. The manager's got a blunt instrument he's hitting people with. And while Lashley's on Swerve, Shelton is kicking the security guys and top roping them. It was chaos. The baby faces were in jeopardy. The heel group, in a believable way, kicked the shit out of everybody. And there was momentum to it. And then MVP takes the microphone, and all he has to say as he's standing there with Shelton and Lashley is, "Guess who's back in business?" And the people cheered like crazy.
Season in chat says, you say it's just a TV show, but to them, it's a lot of us, it's religion. Buddy, I'm in the same boat. I'm pointing out that they are complaining about things like this is real life, when this is in fact a television show, regardless what we feel. Like, I think pro wrestling it's my favorite form of art, but it is a TV show, right? At the end of the day, it is a TV show. We start trying to apply real world logic to most of these things, it seems a little silly. But my point is here that Jim applies the real world logic when it's advantageous for him in the stories that he wants to tell. Despite being on the other side of this, right? Despite being on the other side of booking television, writing television, he understands that we do in the television business certain things to help facilitate the story. Though they may not make sense. Like, okay, why did MVP call Bobby Lashley? Was Bobby Lashley not there? Was he not waiting? He was there pretty quickly. It's silly.
Because this is something. This is men doing wrestling. It was better than Moxley's bunch, 8 weeks of TV in one fucking segment.
Well, the other thing, too, is people forget that right when WWE started getting really hot again, the Hurt Business was still on top. Lashley was still one of the world champions. Right when things started to, bubble up.
Yeah.
And everything with the Bloodline took off. That's why for so long we wanted Bloodline versus Hurt Business. And it never really happened. And I think the fans treated them like they were the stars. One of the things, it was pretty quiet, so you could hear stuff. The AEW, great job of miking the audience as always.
Yeah, you could hear a mouse pissing on cotton in that building that empty.
Botchamania, I think it was, put up a video where, they played that and you could hear the referees as they're running out, just like running out. 90 seconds! 30 seconds!
Well, it doesn't help when they're screaming 90 seconds!
I love the fact that we're complaining about that. Like, there's literally a Botchamania clip of John's. There's a Botchamania segment about how John Cena is a very loud talker in the ring. And I know a lot of people, here's the thing, and a lot of people don't know this, but WWE plays a baseline crowd audio over the entire show, regardless if people are being quiet or not. There sounds like coffee house chatter, just people like, just like that in the background the entire time. So yeah, you're going to hear stuff when you don't do that because, microphones tend to pick stuff up. They tend to pick up sound. Interesting.
And one of the guys in the ring says, "What'd you say?" And the guy in the third row said, "He said 90 seconds."
No, the fans have treated them like, especially here, treated them like main event stars, and that's exactly what you want. Don't fuck it up. It's going to be weird with them coexisting as badasses while Moxley's driving around town or whatever he's doing with his little gang, hanging out by the gas station. What do you think Moxley and them do when they're not at the arena? Hang out over by the 7-Eleven and get some soda? What do you think they're doing?
Maybe playing skee ball.
Oh, there we go.
Again,
Finally,
as you
we get
mentioned earlier in the
reference
program,
for the drawing.
why would Tony Khan have to call the Jackson boys, those little delicate little things who just ran like cowards, or Jungle Jack, who is the most effete, bearded man I've ever seen, and their broken down Japanese paraplegic friend?
Oh, you're forgetting the big friend. That's who it's going to be. It's going to be led by Kenny Omega.
Oh, I forgot. And gutless Kenny.
No, he has guts. They fixed his guts.
They put his guts back in.
I think so, right? They don't remove his gut. They didn't remove anything. They just fixed it up.
They took him and set him out to the side. It's like when you're doing one of those recipes where it says mix these ingredients, set to the side.
It's like one of those brain surgeries I read about in the Observer.
Yeah, they take the brain out and they set it aside. But why would you need to call those? I will give Kenny his credit. He's the only one of the bunch that looks like he could whip any grown adult man, professional athlete or otherwise. But why would you call them when you can just say, hey, MVP, Lashley, Shelton, can you go stretch these stupid motherfuckers for me?
Miro, I'll let you out of your contract. Just take out these men. That's what he should do. He should call in Miro and Wardlow and Hobbs, all the big scary guys, and be like, look, whoever takes out Moxley gets out of their contract at once. And then it becomes like a mad race every week. Who's going to take out Moxley? Meanwhile, they're all fighting each other because they're trying to get to Moxley.
You're saying it's a wrestling version of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Yes, it's a King of the Mountain where the winner gets to leave.
Boy, in that case, there'd be some goddamn people stabbing each other in the guts to fucking take over from that.
You know what? We got vehicles. We got people running around wrestling. The locker room's always dangerous. I think it could really be something. But that was...
I always like the idea of like, these guys are being way too overpaid. And then in the same breath, they all want to leave. I don't know about you, but if I was being overpaid for the work I was doing and I wasn't doing a ton of work, guess what? I would probably hang out. You know, if someone's going to overpay me by hundreds of thousands of dollars, allegedly, that's what you all are saying, right? Saying like, oh, they overpay people, which I don't think you can overpay anybody except CEOs.
That was Dynamite.
Yeah, and that was something.
And that was something. And lots of people listen to lots of something. Whether it's music, whether it's podcasts, whether it's audio.
Thank God these guys are done. They're going to do a promo for some really bad headphones. And that's going to do it. We made it. We made it through this episode of Jim Cornette. And I know a lot of people are saying I was not giving him a fair shake when it comes to his commentary. But I have to say I was right. This guy is out of touch. He's old. He's out of touch. He has no further good ideas left in his body about professional wrestling. I think it's time we just send him out to pasture. We can put him out, him, Vince Russo, Bruce Pritchard, a lot of these old timers. We can put them out in the field and they can just run around and talk about the good old days and talk about the territories and how good Vince McMahon still is. Those guys can all run around and have a great time doing that. But we don't need them anymore. Don't. No, not Old Yeller. And he can go live on a farm and they can run around and have fun. Like him, and he can sit and tell the grass about the Boogie Woogie Man or how over Greg the Hammer Valentine was in Jackson, Mississippi. Like just let him go to a farm upstate and just let him run free, because he is still a net negative for the professional wrestling business at this point. Look, I appreciate all the work and effort you did in the 80s, in the 90s. It's time to hang it up, Jim. You're done. And with that, we're done. And as always, pro wrestling is predetermined. Your life isn't. Go do something great today. Whoa.